Chapter 204. Gohan had secretly informed Clever Pen and Hong Yu about killing Coyote through the team channel. Gohan had not informed Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings. Therefore, when Coyote died a few seconds later, Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings reacted in shock. They had no idea what was happening in front of them. "Admiral, why did you kill him?" Steel Centipede glanced at Aardwolf's corpse. It was tragic. He had died a tragic death. "This poem is the reward for the mission that Liu Ban gave me. It's the one that I got full marks for." Gohan handed the piece of paper with the words, "Samsara collects the filth, and the pure body exists in the world," written on it to Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings. What does this mean? The Steelily's IQ wasn't high enough, so she couldn't understand the meaning of the poem written on the note at all. Samsara is a dimensional vortex, and the pure body is a clean body. Gohan explained. The meaning of this poem is that the dimensional vortex will absorb the filth, and only the pure body will not be absorbed. Liu Ban is telling me how to check if Yuan Ko is infected by filth. If his corpse is absorbed by the dimensional vortex, then he is infected by filth. On the contrary, the filth in his body has been removed. Upon hearing Gohan's explanation, Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings hurriedly took another look. It had been more than 10 seconds since Coyote's death. His corpse was still splattered with blood, and there were no signs of the dimensional vortex appearing. Under normal circumstances, the dimensional vortex would appear in less than 3 seconds and take away Yuan Ko's corpse. But isn't Coyote's corpse still here? This means that the filth in his body has been removed. He is a normal person. We killed the wrong person, Steel Centipede yelled. He felt that he had let down the poor Coyote. If we don't kill him, how will we know if we killed the wrong person? Magic Pen continued Steel Centipede's words. The military governor's meaning is clear. Aardwolf is useless now. His life or death is meaningless to us. On the contrary, we have to confirm that what Aardwolf told us just now is the truth. Only by killing him can we know whether the solution to save Artoria is real or not. Do you understand? Alright, we still have some loose ends to take care of. Steel Centipede, Coyote's corpse can't be absorbed by the dimensional vortex. I'll have to trouble you to drag his corpse to another tunnel and hide it. Don't let Artoria know that I killed Coyote when she wakes up. You see, your sword Maiden can use monstrous waves, right? I don't want Artoria to see any clues and ruin our plan. After killing Coyote, Gohan began to instruct his team members to destroy the corpse skillfully, as if Gohan often did such things. Steel Centipede and Yu, who had been assigned the task, were very unhappy. This was normal. No one liked to destroy corpses. This was the first time Steel Centipede and Yu had done such a thing. In the world of Sword Maiden Online, Yuan Ko would be absorbed by the dimensional vortex after his death, so there was no need to worry about the corpse. Military Governor, there's no need for this. Let's just say that Coyote died in the final battle. Artoria won't know the truth anyway. Steel Centipede began to complain after dragging Coyote's headless corpse for a while. Don't forget, we carry half of the wealth of the Yaoguang sword faction on our shoulders. I don't want to cause the entire dungeon to fail because of this oversight. Even if there's a 1 in 100,000 chance, Gohan said coldly. Hearing Gohan mention the Yaoguang sword faction, Steel Centipede had nothing to say. He could only resign himself to his fate and carry the corpse, although he was still unconvinced and felt that it was just a waste of time. In fact, after this dungeon was officially opened, countless players who entered with guides did not care about the problem of cleaning up the corpse, which led to Artoria discovering Coyote's death after waking up. She then summoned Merlin and asked if Coyote had followed the players in safely. Thus, the entire team was wiped out by Artoria's angry curry stick. From this, it could be seen that Gohan had foresight. Military Governor should have noticed something wrong with Coyote the last time. Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings went to destroy the corpse, while Gohan began to inject his blood into the extraction device again, preparing to create a purifying serum to save Artoria. At this time, he suddenly heard Yu Sikong ask in the communication channel, "I think we should be open and honest with each other. I don't like the feeling of being kept in the dark." The moment Yu Sikong asked the question through the party channel, everyone's attention was focused on the party channel. They wanted to know how much this military governor was hiding from them. "I've always suspected that Great Waves of Kanglan has planted a mole among us, so I didn't explain it to you at first. But now that things have come to this, I don't need to hide it from you." Gohan did not hide his suspicion of a spy. "Yes, I found out last time that Coyote has been infected by filth. Last time, before Coyote went into a coma to fight against the filth, he told us that if we succeeded, he should wait for us at Terminal T1. This was a hint that if we didn't wait at Terminal T1, then he was no longer in a normal state. In fact, he rushed to the door of Terminal T2. At that time, I began to suspect that Coyote had been infected by filth. I got this note from Lu Ban when I got a full score in the last exam. I wanted to kill Aardwolf to see if he had been contaminated by filth. That's why I wanted to kill Aardwolf to see if he had been contaminated by filth at that time. So after Coyote broke up with us at the gas station, I asked Hong Yu to follow behind Coyote and kill him. In the end, his body was absorbed by the dimensional vortex. This means that he had been completely infected by filth at that time. In fact, when we went to his base, when Coyote entered the base alone to get the removal equipment, I was very suspicious, so I asked Hong Yu to enter stealth mode and followed Coyote into his base. I don't know if you remember, but after Coyote left, Hong Yu immediately left on the excuse of going to the toilet. And Hong Yu came back a little later than Coyote because she searched the base and found something interesting. "Hong Yu, you went to the base this time and brought it back. Show it to everyone." "Understood." Hong Yu took out a notebook from her dimensional pocket and said with a smile, "This is a notebook hidden in a very secret place in Coyote's base. It contains records of Coyote's research on the removal of filth. The specific use of the removal equipment is recorded in this notebook. It's clearly written here that only the blood of the sword bearers in this world that hasn't been contaminated by the filth can remove the filth from the infected Yuan Qi. Also, there are requirements for the degree of filth infection and the bloodline of the sword bearer. It has nothing to do with the sword essence of the sword bearer. It seems to be a natural bloodline, but it's not clear. It seems that Aardwolf doesn't know what bloodline is either. There's one more thing." Gohan used the red jade to add a sentence. "The notebook mentioned that the first time you get infected, the success rate of removing the filth is the highest. If you get infected for the second time, the success rate will be reduced by about 5 times. Originally, I wasn't sure why the notebook specifically said this, but now I understand. Only by borrowing the power of the Wind King barrier can the success rate of the second time be increased. I don't know if Long Yu from the Great Waves of the Sea has realized this." "Captain, I found it. I found the removal equipment. Take a look and see if this is it." Outside Coyote's base, Munyan ran out of the base with the removal equipment and handed it to Long Yu. "This should be it. There's no mistake." Xue Leixing followed Munyan out, holding a notebook in his hand. "Captain, there are detailed instructions on how to use the removal equipment. I read the description. This is what Munyan found." Long Yu took the notebook from Xue Leixing and read it carefully. He let out a long sigh of relief. "Looks like we were right this time. This is the right way to remove the filth from Artoria. We succeeded." "Yes." Hearing Dragon Feather's decisive blow, the team members all revealed happy smiles. This time, they had finally found the right path. Victory was in sight. The people of Yaoguang's sword sect were doomed. After more than 20 minutes of waiting, Gohan's blood was finally purified into serum. Gohan carefully lifted Artoria's body and pulled open her wedding dress, revealing her beautiful legs, which were as white as freshly peeled chicken heads. He found the cave at the bottom of the hill and poured the entire bottle of serum into Artoria's body. Just like when he poured the serum into Coyote, the unconscious Artoria let out a cry. Then, her body burned with light blue flames. This meant that the filth was being removed by Guhan's serum. When the light blue flames gradually dissipated, Artoria let out a moan and slowly opened her eyes. Guhan noticed that, unlike the dark black pupils when Artoria had first woken up, her pupils were now green like jewels. Chapter 205. It was you who saved me? Where is Coyote? Artoria, whose eyes were as lively as spring water, stood up from the altar. She looked at Guhan with confusion in her eyes, and when she mentioned Coyote, there was some concern in her eyes. This made Guhan feel slightly uncomfortable, just like the legendary feeling of jealousy. Apologies, great King Arthur, Miss Artoria, Mr. Coyote is dead. When we arrived, he had already died in the hands of Shuda. We came a step too late and couldn't save him. Guhan lied through his teeth. Dead? When Artoria heard the news of Coyote's death, she looked a little sad, but not to the extent of sadness. Guhan didn't know, and this confused Guhan again. What was Coyote's position in the real Artoria's heart? What exactly was going on between them? Sacrifice is a knight's virtue. Coming to this world was a mistake, and returning by sacrificing oneself is also a knight's honor. Artoria stood up, and the snow-white wedding dress she was wearing disappeared in an instant. Don't be too excited, beast blood is boiling. In less than 0.1 seconds, a set of azure armor appeared on Artoria's body. As the core of the Wind King matrix, the scabbard inserted into the wall shook violently and automatically flew down from the wall, falling back into Artoria's hands. Miraculously, when the scabbard returned, Artoria's sword of the lake also returned to the scabbard. Let's go. Artoria waved her hand, and a king's demeanor emerged, or rather, a domineering aura emanated from her body. For a moment, the team members felt that Artoria was their king, and they should follow their king, and go through fire and water without hesitation. Let's go. Guhan shouted after Artoria. Only then did everyone agree and leave this dimensional altar that was full of all kinds of deceitful thoughts. When Guhan's team officially left Terminal T2 and was about to head towards a safe point, Long Yu's team just happened to encounter their own trouble. Hitler, who was shouting scum, chased after them. The script was the same as the last time Guhan's team faced the Nazi king. The sober Artoria would go up against the Nazi king and then trick the Nazi king into accepting her sword of victory and the promised sword. The Nazi king still fell for her trick. He casually released the Third Reich form of the Third Reich and forcefully took on Artoria's sword of victory and the promised sword. Since he had failed to show off, he could only use the main cannon normally. Yesterday, Guhan knew that the filth in Artoria's body had not been expelled, so he decided not to waste time in this dungeon. Instead, he escaped from the dungeon through the Marauder's exit. But it was apparent that Long Yu didn't intend to do so. Under his command, all the members swarmed forward and launched a fierce attack on the Third Reich, which only had one main cannon left. The Great Waves of the Sea was indeed a first-class team. Although the process was thrilling and difficult, the Nazi king's last main cannon was ultimately destroyed by Gentleman's sword. The Nazi king, who had lost all his weapons, could only watch as Long Yu carried Artoria into his Marauder and left the battlefield for the first safe point. Scum! I didn't know that I had the talent to be an actor. Back then, I couldn't have drawn, but I chose to act. Scum! After Long Yu left, the Third Reich, which was theoretically destroyed and could not move, let out a hiss. After a complex mechanical transformation, it turned back into a tiger tank and retreated from the road they came from. I can feel the Nazi king's power. Artoria, who was sitting upright on the Marauder, leaned on her sword of the lake as if she was a king sitting on her throne. He already knows that the filth in my body has been completely removed. He's now approaching us at 500 kilometers per hour. He's here to kill me. What, 500 kilometers per hour? Steel Centipede almost spat blood on the steering wheel. Wasn't he only going at 200 kilometers per hour the last time he chased us? What last time? Artoria was confused. Did you guys get chased by the Nazi king before? Something like that? I met him once before. Gohan's casual nonsense managed to fool Artoria. He could not possibly tell Artoria that this was the third time that he, Gohan, had come to save her. The 200 kilometers per hour that you guys are talking about should be the maximum speed of Hitler's First Reich. Artoria thought that Gohan and the others had really met Hitler before, so she explained, 500 kilometers per hour is the speed of his Second Reich's swallow jet. He'll catch up to us in 30 minutes at most. Then, Artoria, do you still have the strength to use Excalibur to destroy the Nazi King's Third Reich? Gohan asked. I still have the strength to use Excalibur. Artoria nodded, but then she asked Gohan in confusion, but why do you think that my Excalibur can destroy his Third Reich? That's a well-defended helicarrier, the ultimate weapon of the Atlanteans. Unless I use Excalibur more than 10 times, there's no way I can destroy it. I understand. Gohan did not say anything. It seemed that in the previous dungeon, the corrupted Artoria and Hitler were singing a two-man show and putting on a play. The 3 universe levels Yuan Ko's pursuit were all the same. It was just a means to make the humans not suspect that Artoria had been corrupted again. In that case, as long as the players were willing to escape, there was no way they could not escape the pursuit. Don't turn. Just go straight. The law will not judge the brave and fearless. After the sinful blood sword immortal stalled Hammurabi, Long Yu used the same escape method as last time and narrowly avoided Hammurabi's meteor judgment, successfully escaping from Hammurabi's pursuit. After Long Yu and the others escaped for more than 30 minutes, Hammurabi, who had been trembling, suddenly shouted after fighting with the sinful blood sword immortal's sword lady. I'm injured. The sinful blood sword immortal's sword lady's unintentional slash somehow managed to land on Hammurabi's body. Hammurabi yelled and instantly distanced himself from the sinful blood sword immortal. Sinful blood, just you wait. This king will remember this debt. We are not done yet. After saying this, Hammurabi disappeared without a trace. He was even faster than the speed at which he chased after them. Compared to Hitler, Hammurabi's acting skills were obviously too lacking. He was too exaggerated. If Long Yu's battle was said to be a thrilling battle, but in reality, it was a battle without any ripples. On the other hand, on Gohan's side, the Nazi king had clearly not caught up yet, but the battle had already begun. The Nazi king is very close to us. He will meet us in less than 25 minutes. Sitting on the uncomfortable leather seat of the raider, Artoria felt like she was sitting on a throne. She calmly pointed out the distance between her and the Nazi king. It's over. We won't make it in time. Even if I drive at full speed, I won't be able to reach the first safe point in 25 minutes. Steel Centipede wailed. Although he was a little narrow-minded, he was still an unyielding man. Even he felt despair. 25 minutes? That's enough. Facing such a dangerous situation, Gohan did not seem to care. He opened his personal terminal and sent a map to Steel Centipede. Steel Centipede, drive here. Gohan pointed at a certain point on the map to Steel Centipede and asked him to drive to that location. What's here? Is it a safe point? Steel Centipede quickly looked at the map and found that the location was blank. There was only a simple name marked there. There were no other markings. Why are we going there? Steel Centipede asked, then shouted, There's nothing here. It's a dead end. We can't drive here. We can't. I told you to drive here, so drive here. Gohan's voice was even louder than Steel Centipede's. Steel centipede, I am the captain. I told you to drive here, so drive here. Chapter 206. Sitting in the hovercraft, Long Yu looked at Siping City on the map that was getting closer and closer. Only then did he let out a long sigh of relief. As long as he met up with the Spirit Sword level swordsman team in Siping City, he would definitely be able to obtain the final victory. In the entire instance, Long Yu had already confidently accelerated his advancement speed to the limit. He had also seen through all the tricks and traps in the entire instance. He, Long Yu, would definitely win this gamble. Long Yu, do you think you've already won? Just when Long Yu felt that everything was going well, a reprimanding and angry voice sounded in his mind. Long Yu's expression changed greatly. The owner of this voice was clearly his master, 8 Cloud's young master. Master, why did you directly contact your disciple through the fallen hero dagger? Didn't you swear not to use the fallen hero dagger again? Long Yu was shocked to hear his master's voice. As mentioned before, in an instance, all contact with other players was generally cut off. Only some special equipment could allow a player in the instance to contact a specific person outside. This special equipment was the fallen hero dagger. It was very rare in the game, and there were less than 60 Sword Maiden's equipment. There were a total of 3 sets of this fallen hero dagger, and 2 of them were in the hands of Great Blue Wave. The fallen hero dagger wasn't a single piece of equipment, but 2 pieces of equipment that matched each other. Players who held one of them could contact each other through the fallen hero dagger, no matter what skills, formations, shielding, or even the dimensional wall. So far, the fallen hero dagger had never lost contact, whether it was in real life or in the game. 10 years ago, because of an unforgettable incident, 8 Cloud's young master swore never to use the fallen hero dagger to contact others again. But Long Yu never thought that today, 8 Cloud's young master would actually make an exception. Silly disciple, Master wants to ask you, where did you remove the filth from King Arthur? 8 Cloud's young master hurriedly asked. In the marauder's carriage. Master, Long Yu was in a hurry, so I removed the filth from King Arthur in the carriage. Long Yu was stunned. Was he wrong? He shouldn't have removed the filth from the carriage. Silly! 8 Cloud's young master scolded. Master wants to ask you again. Along the way, have you ever been in a life-threatening situation? It's not a dangerous situation that doesn't look safe, it's a dangerous situation that could kill you in the next second. No. Master. No. Long Yu started to panic. He wasn't stupid. When he heard his master's questions, he vaguely felt that he had made a grave mistake. Foolish disciple. Foolish disciple. How did I teach such a foolish disciple? Young Master Ba Yun kept calling him a silly disciple, showing the pain in his heart. Just now, the chess piece sent over the process of military governor clearing the instance dungeon through the other pair of fallen hero sword heads. Listen and see how he did it. Next, young Master Ba Yun explained the entire process of Gohan's instance dungeon in detail, including removing the equipment, then removing the filth from the Ardwolves, then killing the Ardwolves, then removing the filth from King Arthur under the suppression of the Wind King's matrix. He also told Long Yu about the full score brocade pouch, the notebook, and other details. Just the narration alone took up to 10 minutes. During these 10 minutes, Long Yu was sweating profusely. He was so terrified that he didn't know what was going on. Only now did he realize that the Artoria beside him was still the Artoria who had been contaminated by the filth. Naturally, if he sent this Artoria over, he would still receive an F-grade evaluation. It would be impossible for him to get any higher. What was even more frightening was that even now, Long Yu still realized that he was wrong. Even though there was less than an hour until the end of the instance dungeon, it was all too late. Long Yu had no way of reversing everything. Long Yu really couldn't think of any way to change this result. I've lost. I've lost. Dragon Feather suddenly knelt on the hovercraft, scaring Artoria and his 2 teammates. Because Long Yu was communicating with young Master Yakumo through brainwaves, the others didn't hear the conversation between Long Yu and his master. They only noticed that Long Yu's expression was becoming more and more unsightly. It was so unsightly that it looked like he was about to cry. I've lost. I've lost. Long Yu was like a gambler who had lost everything. He had lost everything that could support him and knelt on the ground like a zombie. I've lost. It's over. 3 Demon Suppression Sword Formation. Emperor Sword Quest. It's all over. I've lost. I've completely lost. Captain, what's wrong, Captain? Did something happen? Seeing Long Yu's sudden behavior, his 2 teammates, Gentleman and Fair Lady, pulled on Long Yu's arm and asked him what had happened. However, Long Yu closed his eyes and remained silent, completely ignoring Gentleman and Fair Lady. Because at that moment, Long Yu was still being lectured by his master. Disciple, are you afraid? Are you desperate? Could it be that you've already knelt down and accepted your failure? Young Master Yakumo, who was on the other side of the fallen flower sword, was roaring. His voice was like a loud alarm bell, causing Long Yu's chaotic mind to suddenly calm down. His mind, which had been muddled and could no longer think, began to think again. No, Master, I haven't knelt down. I haven't failed. I still have a chance. Long Yu's knees, which had been kneeling on the floor of the hovercraft, retracted and his but sat back down. All right, disciple. Tell me, what other chances do you have? Young Master Yakumo's voice sounded gratified. He could feel that calmness and wisdom had returned to his disciple's mind. We've failed this time, but that doesn't mean we've lost the bet. We can start all over again. Long Yu's expression was frozen like mercury. I'll immediately leave the Instance Dungeon's exit and start all over again. You want to start all over again? Young Master Yakumo's voice sounded even more gratified. Clearly, Long Yu's answer was correct. Or perhaps he was thinking the same thing. However, young Master Yakumo asked, You can start all over again, but what about Yaoguang's sword faction? What about that military governor? They are already on the right path. They were slower than you to begin with and have yet to pass the first safe point. However, once you start all over again, they will be in front of you. The honor of being the first to clear an S-rank mission and all the bets will be theirs. You will still be drawing water with a sieve. No, Master, I will still win. After saying that, Long Yu abruptly opened his eyes, revealing a vicious expression. Since we, the Great Azure Waves, have to start all over again, then Yaoguang's sword faction can start all over again with us. Master, didn't the chess piece report that Yaoguang's sword faction is being chased by King Nazui? Then we should help the Nazi king. Master, this disciple requests to use that chess piece. Let that chess piece send the Yaoguang sword faction, that military governor, and the others to hell together. As long as 1 or 2 of them die in the Instance Dungeon, then those who die won't be able to come online for 3 days. Coupled with the chess piece that left, this disciple believes that no matter how capable Yaoguang's sword faction is, they won't be able to form a new team in a short period of time. That way, victory will still be in our hands. But this way, we'll lose the chess piece that we spent so much effort to place in Yaoguang's sword faction. Long Yu, you know how this chess piece managed to infiltrate the core of the Yaoguang sword faction. You should understand how difficult it was to place this chess piece there. Once this chess piece is exposed, we can forget about placing another chess piece in this position in the future. Young Master Ba Yun seemed to be hesitant. He did not want this chess piece to be completely exposed. Master, you taught me that when I encounter something that I can't decide on, I should weigh it in my heart and use its absolute value to speak. This disciple believes that compared to the tripartite demon subduing sword formation and the Emperor sword quest, this chess piece's value is not worth mentioning. Good, good, good. This is my good, decisive, and quick-witted disciple. Don't worry. Before I spoke to you, I already ordered that chess piece to take action. They might have already suffered heavy casualties and are no longer able to fight. Quickly command the other members to leave the instant's dungeon and prepare to start all over again. As expected, the older, the wiser. Young Master Ba Yun's questions were all to force Long Yu to wake up. Young Master Ba Yun paused for a moment before saying, "Disciple, ask yourself honestly. This time, you have indeed failed. You lost to that fellow, the military governor. However, you have the backing of the Great Ocean Waves Guild and countless backup plans that gave you the chance to turn the tables. However, I hope that you will learn from this lesson. Think carefully about what it was that interfered with your judgment of the entire instant's dungeon. I hope that this experience will cause you to change and become a brand new person. A brand new Long Yu in the game and a brand new Chen Lu in the real world. This is the last time I'll help you. From now on, you'll have to rely on yourself." After saying that, young Master Ba Yun completely hung up on sword leader Luo Ying. "Master!" A sorrowful expression flashed across Long Yu's face. However, he immediately regained his decisiveness and ordered through the party channel, "All members, pay attention. Immediately find the nearest instant's dungeon escape point. Leave the instant's dungeon and regroup at the instant's dungeon entrance. I repeat, immediately leave the instant's dungeon and regroup at the instant's dungeon entrance." "Yes, I understand. For the Great Ocean Waves Guild. For Ogen." In Gohan's instant's dungeon, a person received the communication from sword leader Luo Ying. He looked around and carefully scanned his surroundings. After making sure that no one could see him, he quickly pulled out his famed sword and slashed at something that looked like a fuel tank beside him. He perfectly cut open a small hole. Precious jet fuel dripped down from the hole in the fuel tank. "Hurry, everyone, get on the plane. The runway has been cleared." At the same time, someone shouted through the party channel, "Coming!" The person who stabbed the fuel tank with his sword immediately responded. He pretended that nothing had happened and crawled out from under the plane. Chapter 207. The exit of a dungeon was a passageway arranged by the system for players to quickly escape from a dungeon. Normally, this passageway would be located near the main plot map, allowing players to escape from the dungeon as quickly as possible. For example, Parking Lot P2, Terminal T2, the Dimensional Altar, the Marauder off-road vehicle, and the hovercraft all had an exit. The exit of the hovercraft was under the seat at the back. Long Yu pushed the seat back forcefully, and an exit that looked like water appeared under the seat. Ignoring the shock of Artoria and the NPC swordsman, Long Yu jumped into the exit first, followed by Gentleman and Graceful Lady. Long Yu appeared in Yanjing Bay City in a daze. Soon, Shui Leixing, Munyan, and Ling Yun, who had been waiting at the second safety node, also exited the dungeon. Without saying a word, the six of them started running towards the teleportation point. They were prepared to teleport back to Jinling City, where the Great Waves sect was stationed. Then, they would use the teleportation gate to teleport to the small teleportation point at Xianyang Airport. Along the way, Long Yu also found time to explain the ins and outs of the matter. Only then did everyone realize that they were wrong again. Fortunately, young Master Ba Yun, the stabilizing pillar of the sect, had already set up a secret plan. Otherwise, Kanglin Billows would have really fallen into the gutter and been ruthlessly slapped in the face this time. Long Yu's party rushed back to the entrance of the dungeon at Xianyang Airport in the shortest time possible. However, they found that they could not enter the dungeon for the time being. There was a cooldown period of 1 hour after exiting the dungeon. Within that hour, they could not enter the dungeon again. There were about 40 minutes left until the cooldown period. "Let's rest in the tent." Long Yu sighed. Although he wanted to rush back into the dungeon immediately, there was no way to get rid of this 1 hour, unless he could bribe Bat. The atmosphere in the resting tent was very lively. It was a rare moment of rest. The rest of the team members took out their drinks, mahjong and other entertainment tools and began to play happily. From their point of view, this wave of attacks was in the bag. The members of Yaoguang's sword sect should have left the dungeon later than them. They would also re-enter the dungeon later than them. Not to mention, they would lose an important combat force. No matter how they looked at it, they were in the bag. Time passed by slowly. Soon, there were less than 5 minutes left before the cooldown of the instant's dungeon ended. Long Yu raised his hand, slammed the table, and ordered, "Pack up your things and prepare to enter the instant's dungeon." Yes. Everyone responded and then began to pack up their poker and mahjong. All channels broadcast. Ding dong. With the hard work of the elite sword-bearers of the Yaoguang sword faction, military governor, wonderful pen Lansang Jiang, Wu Steel Meatball, Hong Yu Yu Sikong, and Yu Xiu, they cleared the hidden dungeon King Arthur's Betrayal for the first time with an SS rank rating and obtained the title King Arthur's Savior. All channels broadcast. Ding dong. The hidden dungeon, King Arthur's Betrayal, has been cleared by an SS rank. The entrance to the instant's dungeon will be temporarily closed for 24 hours. After 24 hours, it will become a famed sword rank dungeon and will be open to all players. Players below famed sword rank can enter the instant's dungeon through the entrance of the Xianying City Airport ruins. Once again, let us thank the 6 King Arthur's Saviors for their dedication to the world. F***CK What the hell is this? Did I hear it wrong? Munyan dropped the mahjong tiles in his hands onto the table. He looked at his teammates and saw that they were all in a state of shock and disbelief. Especially Long Yu. His face was full of shock, anger, fear, hesitation, madness, confusion, all sorts of negative emotions could be seen on Long Yu's face. At the same time, the entire Sea Billow Sword Sect's chat channel began to explode. All sorts of messages poured down like a waterfall. Thousands of messages were refreshed every second. One could imagine that the entire Sea Billow Sword Sect was in an explosive state. "Leader, what should we do now?" Munyan asked Long Yu, not knowing what to do. When he heard Munyan's question, Long Yu raised his head. His eyes flashed with a murderous light. Munyan jumped in fright. In the end, Long Yu did not say another word. His figure flickered and he disappeared. Don't misunderstand. Long Yu had not teleported. He had logged off. What kind of person is this? You can't even command like this. You can't even compare to a newbie who has been in the game for less than 2 weeks. What the hell are you talking about? Munyan cursed, then logged off. The rest of the team smiled bitterly. When they joined the clearers, they had never imagined that they would fail to clear the first clear of a dungeon for the first time in more than 20 years. This time, they were the scapegoats. When they thought of this, they lost interest in staying in the game. One by one, they followed Munyan and logged off. Soon, there was no one left in the tent. An hour and a half later, under Gohan's forceful command, Steel Centipede drove the Marauder to the location on the map. It was a vast, empty plain. The place used to be a large piece of farmland. After more than 700 years of being empty, the farmland had degenerated back to its original state, a plain. However, what was surprising was that there was actually a wooden windmill standing in the middle of this plain. The blades of the windmill could actually move along with the wind. This was a very unscientific thing. After being exposed to the wind and rain for so many years, no matter how strong the wood was, it should have decayed to the point where it couldn't support the weight of the windmill's blades and collapsed. Even if the material used for the windmill was very solid, the bearing part of the wheel blades could not be rotated again. This was completely contrary to the normal law of development. This place looks familiar. I think I've seen it somewhere before. Magic Pen looked at the place. He felt as if he had seen this place before. I also feel like I've seen this place before, but I can't remember, Steel Centipede added. After hearing Steel Centipede and Magic Pen's words, even the Yu siblings and Hong Yu felt as if they had seen this place before. There's a very famous portrait of this scene. Gohan quickly ran towards the windmill. As he ran, he explained, "Let me give you a hint. That is a portrait of the man and Giendi." When Gohan mentioned the man and Giendi's name, everyone instantly remembered where they had seen this scene. The sword-bearers' service centers in every city would hang the portraits of all the sword emperors in the past 1,000 years. In fact, wasn't the background of the portraits of the people and the sword emperors just a plain and a lonely windmill standing on the plain? The portraits of each Giendi hung in the sword-bearers' service center for future generations to admire were very particular. Every strand of hair, every color, and every scene had to be carefully selected and paid attention to. Generally speaking, Giendi's portraits were drawn from their most well-known deeds. For example, Kanzu's background was the entire Yanjing Bay City, symbolizing the Yanjing city that Kanzu founded. Giendi's background was 8 huge heads, symbolizing his great achievement of killing one of the strongest desolate-level Yuan-ko, the Yamata no Serpent. As for the man and Giendi, Giendi was very low-key among all the Giendi, or rather, the very irresponsible Giendi. In his life, he had not even killed a desolate-level Yuan-ko, and he had only killed 2 Hun-level Yuan-ko. Human beings are very realistic. If you protect our safety and make great contributions, we will sing and praise your great story. On the contrary, it is difficult for people to even remember your name. Among all the Giendi since ancient times, the man and Giendi could be regarded as the least popular Giendi apart from Mingyuan Giendi. Not many people knew about his life, so at this time, Magic Pen and the others had no idea why they chose this place to paint the portrait of the man and Giendi. The man and Giendi has only killed 2 Hun-level Yuan-ko in his life. In fact, the most powerful Hun-level Yuan-ko should be the immortal Dugu Batian. This is the battlefield of the man and Giendi and Dugu Batian. 30 years after the instance, the man and Giendi and Dugu Batian had a decisive battle here. In the end, everything within a radius of 100 kilometers turned into powder. Gohan explained. So, Dugu Batian died here. When everyone heard the name Dugu Batian, they couldn't help but sigh. Although Dugu Batian was Yuan-ko, his popularity was far greater than that of the man who killed him and Giendi. Dugu Batian belonged to the Chidian Book League. Originally, he lived in harmony with humans. He never killed humans, nor did he destroy cities. He just liked to find strong opponents to fight with. Even if he defeated his opponent, he never killed them. Therefore, Dugu Batian's reputation among humans wasn't bad. Later, the man and Giendi became Giendi. Dugu Batian also came to find the man to fight with Giendi. However, during the fight, for some reason, Dugu Batian suddenly wanted to kill the man and Giendi. Both sides changed from a fight to a life-and-death fight. In the end, the man and Giendi were superior and killed Dugu Batian. The plain in front of them was the place where they fought. Military Governor, I still don't understand. Even if the man, Giendi, and Dugu Batian fought here 30 years later, what does it have to do with us escaping from the Nazi king? What does it help? The man and Giendi can't suddenly appear and save us, right? Steel Centipede was still confused. Steel Centipede, touch here. Gohan touched the wooden wall of the windmill and called Steel Centipede over to touch it as well. Steel Centipede felt something was wrong. His eyebrows and nose squeezed together as he said in surprise, "This is not wood, this is steel." Chapter 208. The windmill in front of Gohan and the others was not a wooden windmill. Instead, it was a windmill built entirely out of steel. However, it had been painted by an expert to look like a wooden windmill. Moreover, the steel used to build the windmill was no ordinary steel. It was a high-grade special steel that was resistant to corrosion and rust. Otherwise, it would not have been able to maintain its rotation for 700 years. The question was, why did a small windmill here need steel, and a special steel at that? Was it because the original owner of this field had too much money to spend? Gohan led everyone into the windmill. He patted Magic Pen on the shoulder and smiled. Please ask Qingying to cut open the steel plate under our feet. Qingying is the sharpest and the best material we have here. I'll have to trouble her. Okay. Wondrous Pen nodded and released Qingying. Qingying didn't say anything and drew a circle on the ground. A circular hole instantly appeared on the ground, and a circular steel plate that was at least 50 centimeters thick fell into it. It fell for a full 3 to 4 seconds before the loud sound of it hitting the ground could be heard. Judging from the time, there was at least a large space that was more than 60 meters deep under Guhan's feet. Let's go down. After saying that, Guhan was the first to jump into the hole. What else could the others say? They could only follow behind Guhan and jump down. Fortunately, they were holding onto their sword maidens. Otherwise, a normal person would have been smashed into meat paste after jumping from a height of 60 meters. System notification. Player Military Governor, your party has triggered the hidden map. XXX base. Original Quest 7 has failed. Hidden Quest. One step to victory is in effect. Please lead your party directly back to Yanjing Bay City. We triggered the hidden map just like that? How cool! Steel Centipede exclaimed, but no one paid attention to him. The space under the windmill had been sealed for an unknown period of time. The entire space was filled with a strange smell. It was like the smell of a 1,000-year-old tomb. Magic Pen and the others turned on their flashlights and discovered that they were in a very advanced and sci-fi underground facility. The 4 walls were filled with various warnings and confidential words. It felt like they had arrived at a very underground base. Artoria, how long will it take for the Nazi king to get here? Guhan asked Artoria, who was the last to jump down. About 15 minutes. Artoria frowned. Why did we come here? What we need to do is to escape to a safe zone controlled by you humans, not wait for death in this underground cage. This isn't an underground prison. This is one of the most secretive research and nuclear bases of the Chinese government before the Great Calamity. There are over 100 nuclear bombs and rockets here, as well as 3 brand new fighter jets that are currently being developed. The most elite Dark Blade Special Forces are stationed here all year round to protect this place. This isn't some underground prison, but an out-and-out safe fortress. Other than the people in the base, there are less than 100 people in China who know about the existence of this base. Guhan explained. This place is so secretive. How did you know about it, Military Governor? Steel Centipede asked, puzzled. Back then, the humans, Jiendi and Dugu Baitian fought here, exposing this base. However, this base was basically destroyed by the humans, Jiendi and Dugu Baitian's various battles. Fortunately, a mainframe that preserved the entire base's information was not destroyed, so later generations were able to restore the entire building structure of the base and the various secrets inside. Through some special channels, I found all the information about this base, but I wasn't sure if Bat was completely present in the game and the dungeon world. So after the meeting with you yesterday, I entered the dungeon again and purposely came here. As a result, I found that the dungeon world had indeed completely reproduced this base. I have to admit that Bat is really a great intelligent program. Although I don't understand what you are talking about, I have to tell you that your conversation just now has already wasted 3 minutes. We only have 12 minutes left. No matter how strong the defense of this base is, it is impossible to stop the attack of the Nazi King's Third Reich. Artoria saw these humans constantly talking about irrelevant things and could not help but urge them. It's okay, we have enough time. Guhan patted Artoria's shoulder with an expression that said, Don't worry about me. According to the information, this base is experimenting with 3 top-secret military aircraft, one of which is an official top-secret design, the aerial gunship. Simply put, the aerial gunship is a heavy fighter aircraft equipped with rapid-fire cannons and howitzers. It can use the heavy artillery on the side of the fuselage to launch a sustained artillery suppression on the enemy's front position for a long time. Because the cannons are fired in the air, They can fire at the blind spots of the enemy's cannons from various angles that are impossible for traditional cannons. In a situation where our side has obtained air supremacy, the aerial gunship can deal the most lethal artillery fire to the enemy. Before the apocalypse, only the United States was equipped with the mature aerial gunship AC-130. Therefore, the Huaxia Empire used the AC-130 as a blueprint and began to develop its own aerial gunship, codenamed Vanguard. When the apocalypse happened, the research was nearing its end, and even the prototype had been manufactured. All that was left was to soar into the sky for test flight. Our target is this Vanguard aerial gunship. When I came to check yesterday, I discovered that thanks to the good sealed environment of this underground base, this Vanguard aerial gunship is very well protected. The fuel tank is even full. As long as it is activated, it can soar into the sky. This is the reason why I brought you all here. With the Vanguard aerial gunship's speed of 450 kilometers per hour, we can definitely escape the pursuit of the Nazi king and reach the next safe point. Everyone was stunned when they heard Gohan's words. This dungeon could be played like this? He even made an aerial gunship. What was in this military governor's head? He could even think of such a place and such a thing, and then use it in a dungeon raid. Comrade military governor, please allow us to kneel to you. Alright, stop daydreaming. There's not much time left. We have to hurry to the launch pad where the Vanguard aerial gunship is, Gohan urged. But military governor, it's pitch black here, and there are all sorts of twists and turns everywhere. It's like a maze. By the time we reach the launch pad in the dark, the Nazi king will probably be here. Steel Centipede looked at the dense maze of tunnels and felt a headache coming on. Who said you could walk through it? Gohan pulled out his King-Yu sword and walked to the side of a wall. With a forceful swing, Gohan instantly cut a hole in the wall that was made of special alloy that was 10 centimeters thick. We'll take the shortcut. After saying that, Gohan took the lead and entered the next room. The others exchanged glances. Their brains still couldn't keep up with the military governors. They were still thinking about how to get out of the maze, but the other party had already pushed down the walls of the maze and rushed to the exit. As Gohan had already come here before, everything went smoothly. Gohan cut through 7 walls and finally reached the room where the Vanguard aerial gunship was stored. A 30-meter-long, 12-meter-tall behemoth appeared in front of everyone. This was a Real fighter plane. Steel Centipede couldn't help but rub his palms when he saw the plane. He couldn't wait to pilot it. By the way, who's the pilot of this plane? Steel Centipede suddenly thought of something. He could drive an off-road vehicle, but that didn't mean he could fly a plane, and a battle-grade one at that. Who's the pilot of this plane? Hey, do any of you know how to fly a plane? Steel Centipede asked Magic Pen and the others. In the end, the others exchanged glances. They were all sword-wielders. Nowadays, planes and hovercrafts were all fully piloted. Who would pilot an antique from 1,000 years ago? What are you thinking about? I know how to fly this thing. Gohan patted the Steel Centipede's head and said, I've studied the pilot manual of this Vanguard yesterday, and I've successfully flown it into the sky. Don't worry. Artoria, how much longer until the Nazi king arrives? For Gohan, time was money. 7 more minutes. I can already smell the unpleasant smell of the Nazi king. 7 more minutes? Gohan pondered for a moment. Everyone, follow me. Clear all the junk around us, then cut open the iron door of the launch port and clear the space for the plane to taxi. We only have 7 minutes. Hurry! 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 When Gohan said the word, hurry, 3 times in a row, the others felt as if a dog was biting their butt. They began to frantically clear all kinds of obstacles blocking the plane's taxi. Whether they could escape from the Nazi king's clutches and win this competition depended on these 7 minutes. Just as his teammates, including Artoria, were frantically clearing the runway, a figure suddenly sneaked back to the side of the plane. Yes, I understand. 4 brilliant billows. For Ogen, Ogen. He lowered his head and carefully scanned his surroundings. After making sure that no one could see him, he quickly pulled out his famed blade and stabbed at something that looked like a fuel tank beside him. He perfectly cut open a small hole. Precious jet fuel dripped down from the hole in the fuel tank. Hurry, everyone, get on the plane. The plane is about to take off. At the same time, Gohan shouted in the guild channel. Coming. The person who stabbed the fuel tank with his sword immediately responded. He pretended as if nothing had happened and crawled out from under the plane. As a result, when this person got out from under the plane, he saw Gohan's smiling face looking at him. Military Governor, let's get on the plane. The person pretended as if nothing had happened and calmly prepared to board the plane. Wait. Gohan pressed down on the person's shoulder. Are you going to keep pretending? What are you talking about? I don't understand what you are talking about. The person took a step back but was blocked by another person. You bumped into me. A female voice rang out. Hong Yu's figure gradually appeared out of thin air. Hong Yu had actually maintained her invisible state and stayed there. This meant that she had seen the entire process. Phew. I knew that I would be discovered sooner or later. You put a lot of pressure on me. Military Governor, you are the only person I will respect in this life. P.S. You are the ones who know who the spy is. Chapter 209. Why? Why are you the spy? Hong Yu looked at the person in front of her. She was in a state of confusion. When Gohan told her that there was a spy in the team and asked her to use her invisibility ability to secretly observe them, Hong Yu did not believe it. She felt that there was no spy in the team. Even if there was, it could not be the person in front of her. But the truth told Hong Yu that the spy was the one in front of her. Military Governor, what are you doing? Why are you pointing the tip of your sword at Wondrous Pen? At this time, the Yu siblings, Gunben, and Artoria had also returned to the side of the plane. They saw the tip of Gohan's sword pointed at Wondrous Pen's throat. That's right, this spy was Wondrous Pen. He was Wondrous Pen, the super elder who had followed Yaoguang's sword faction since its founding and had fought alongside Yaoguang's sword faction. This man was the same age as Yaoguang's sword faction when they were 15 years old, and he had watched the growth of Yaoguang's sword faction almost single-handedly. This man was the spy. He's a spy, Gohan said coldly. He just cut a hole in the plane's fuel tank. In less than 10 minutes, all the aviation fuel in the entire fuel tank will be lost. At that time we, who are in the sky, can only end up falling with the plane. Do you think he's a spy? No. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Gunben could not believe what Gohan said. Because in the team, Gunben respected Wondrous Pen the most. When Gunben was still a trash sword bearer, it was Wondrous Pen who discovered Gunben's potential and introduced him to Yaoguang's sword faction. Gunben was able to have Alandet because Wondrous Pen had led a team to help him farm for 3 whole months before he was able to farm 10 tokens. For Gunben, Wondrous Pen was not only his friend, but also his elder and teacher. Gunben could not believe that Wondrous Pen was actually a spy. Military Governor, are you mistaken? How could Magic Pen Boss be a spy? This is impossible. The Yu siblings also chimed in. Although they didn't have such deep feelings for Wonderful Brush like Steelworm, they had seen everything that Wonderful Brush had done for the Yaoguang sword sect. They could not believe that the man who had racked his brains for the rise of Yaoguang's sword sect was a spy. That's right. Miaobi is definitely not a spy. It's impossible. Steel Centipede roared. Miaobi is the deputy sect leader of our Yaoguang sword sect. Deputy sect leader. His position was below tens of thousands of people. Even if he was originally a spy, sitting in his current position, it was impossible for him to be a spy. What could Kanglin Buotao give him? The vice leader of the Great Waves of Azure Waves? How is this possible? By the way, Military Governor, You said that wonderful brush is a spy. This is only your side of the story. Apart from that, do you have any evidence to prove it? Steel Centipede gritted his teeth and said, I understand. You are the spy. You are the spy who wants to frame Deputy Sect Leader Wonderful Brush. You, an outsider, are the most likely spy. Shut up, Steel Centipede. I saw what Wonderful Brush did with my own eyes. Military Governor did not lie. I saw Wonderful Brush cut open our fuel tank with my own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes. Hong Yu retorted in a stern voice. Then even you are a spy. You are also a spy. You and this military governor are together. Both of you are spies. Steel Centipede was about to go crazy. Enough. Look at this. Wake up. Hong Yu sneered. She tapped on her personal terminal, and a video appeared in the air. This video was none other than the video of Wonderful Brush destroying the fuel tank. Seeing this video, Steel Centipede felt as if all the bones in his body had been pulled out. He fell limply to the ground. With such evidence in front of him, Steel Centipede had no choice but to believe it. There is no need to defend me, Steel Centipede. I am indeed a spy. Wonderful Brush raised his head and looked at the dark roof. He let out a long sigh of relief. It has been 17 years. In the blink of an eye, I have played the role of a spy for 17 years. Today, I can finally be myself again. During these 17 years, I almost thought that I was the vice leader of the Yaoguang sword faction, the leader inside and Yaoguang's best friend. If it weren't for this dungeon raid, I might have continued playing the role for another 17 years, 34 years. I might even have to play the role until I die. So I want to thank you, Military Governor. You are the one who ended my painful days. I finally don't have to live such a painful and tangled life anymore. Thank you, Military Governor. I really thank you. I don't hate you at all for exposing me. You are the one who freed me. Don't thank me. Thank you for your acting. Sometimes your acting is really bad, especially when you are panicking. You reveal too many flaws. Gohan hugged his arms. The world goes on, and the spirits of heroes never scatter. I can't believe I have witnessed yet another pitiful betrayal. Artoria walked over slowly. Her expression was very ugly. In history, she, King Arthur, was betrayed by the man and woman she loved and sank to the bottom of the Spirit Lake. Therefore, Artoria had an extremely painful memory of betrayal. Do you need me to kill him? Military Governor. Artoria also drew her sword of the lake. Although Artoria was no match for the Nazi king, she was more than enough to deal with a famed sword-level wondrous pen. Not to mention, the Yao siblings, who were ranked second in the famed sword level, were supporting her from the side. You will have to ask Wondrous Pen yourself. Wondrous Pen, do you still want to fight us to buy time for the leaders behind you? Gohan asked as he looked into Wondrous Pen's eyes. No, I am not interested. Wondrous Pen shook his head. I have already destroyed the plane's fuel tank. My mission is complete. I don't want to fight my former friends anymore, especially Steel Centipede. I really don't want to fight you, and I won't fight you. Okay, I believe you. Gohan retracted his sword that was pressed against Wondrous Pen's throat. Military Governor, he is very dangerous. There is a powerful force in his body. Once he decides to fight us, we will definitely delay him for a long time. The Nazi king will arrive in less than a minute. Artoria tried to persuade Gohan. You are wrong, Miss Artoria. The Nazi king will not arrive in less than a minute. He is already above us now. Impossible, my senses are not bad. Before Artoria could finish her sentence, the ground above the base trembled violently. The entire underground base was shaken by the tremor. Artoria felt her face burning, as if she had been slapped. The special metal here has the ability to block out senses. Although it cannot completely block out your senses of the Nazi king, it is normal for you to make a wrong judgment. Gohan explained. Artoria, King Arthur, Night King, I know you are nearby. Come out, let's fight again. Above him, the Nazi king's muffled voice traveled down to the ground. It seems like the isolation here has not only blocked your senses, Artoria, but it has also made it difficult for the Nazi king to sense you. That's why he can only sense that you're nearby, but he can't sense that you're right under his feet, Guhan said. But he will find out sooner or later. His sense of smell is very sensitive. This base can't buy us too much time. We have to start this plane immediately and escape from this base. Otherwise, we will all die here. Artoria's expression became anxious. But military governor, I have already destroyed the fuel tank of this plane. You will fall from the sky in less than 10 minutes. Do you have a way to solve this problem? Wondrous Pen's words sounded like he was mocking Gahan, but in fact, he had no intention of mocking him. Not at all. He just wanted to know if this man whom he admired could come up with a way to turn the situation around at this almost desperate moment. He estimated that even the old guy who put him in would be helpless in the face of such a situation. Military governor, can we think of a way to weld this mailbox together? I see that there is electric welding equipment here. Maybe we can weld the gap, Hong Yu suggested. It's no use. These welding rods can't be used anymore. Even if they can be used, it's impossible to weld such a gap with less than 10 years of experience. Rashly welding will only cause more damage to the fuel tank. Then Hong Yu seemed to have thought of something, but at that moment, the ground shook violently again. Then, they heard the Nazi king shouting, "Arthur, I know where you are. Why are you hiding underground like an English mouse? Why are you trembling under the bombardment of the Nazis like your useless junior, Churchill? Arthur, come out right now." Boom! It seemed that the Nazi king had blasted the ground. The soil on the surface of the ground had probably been blasted away, and the steel shell of the underground base was exposed to the Nazi king. It seems like there's no other way. Artoria pulled out her sword of the lake and looked up with determination. You guys run first. I'll stall the Nazi king. You guys are here to save me. Although I can't defeat him with my strength, I can still stall him for a few minutes. You guys take the opportunity to escape. We'll meet again if fate allows it. With that, Artoria was about to fly out from the entrance and fight the Nazi king to the death. What are you doing? I won't leave you alone. Gohan grabbed Artoria's smooth, white hand. Artoria was stunned, but she didn't break free from Gohan's grasp. Because Gohan continued, "When did I say that there's no way to escape? You still have a way to escape?" Artoria and everyone else, including Magic Pen, were stunned. In such a desperate situation, Gohan still had a way to escape? Of course I have a way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have watched Magic Pen destroy the fuel tank of this plane. Gohan's grip on Artoria's hand tightened. Actually, I didn't intend to fly this plane. Flying a plane is not as simple as welding. I actually prepared another means of transportation. Chapter 210. Boom! There was another loud noise, and the underground base shook violently. Things kept falling from the lamps overhead. Not good. The Nazi king has destroyed part of the base in the north. It won't be long before we reach the south. We have to go. Gohan pulled Artoria's hand and ran to the side of a wall. He quickly cut open the wall and was the first to enter the hole. "Go, follow me!" Gohan shouted, and the rest of the people quickly followed, leaving only Pen and Steel Centipede standing in the same place. "Pen, why aren't you leaving? It'll be too late if you don't leave now." Pen laughed. "Big brother Magic Brush, come with me." Gunpen looked at the Magic Pen with a very serious expression. "I can see that the Admiral won't make things difficult for you. You should leave with us." "I can't go. I don't want to go." Pen shook his head. "Go, Pen. I thank you for your kindness. It's not in vain that I picked up a piece of unpolished jade for you. Go, don't worry about me. No, you're just waiting for death if you stay here. I won't let you stay here alone." Steel Centipede said sadly. He felt like he was the male lead in a sad TV series. No, Pen, I won't let you die alone. If we're going to die, we'll die here together. Did you watch a TV series? Pen kicked Pen. Get lost. This is a game. I won't be able to log in for 3 days at most. It won't take my life. Get lost. Pen suddenly felt very embarrassed. Yes, this is a game. No one will die. Why should I be sad? Pen knew that Pen, who had been seen through, had no face to escape. Steel Centipede sighed and went back into the cave. What a pity. I wonder what the military governor will do to escape. It's really a pity. If it wasn't for the fact that it would be difficult to explain to old man Yakumo after coming out of the dungeon unscathed, I'd like to see what the military governor is up to. Military governor, what are we doing here? There are no planes here. Steel Centipede was the last to arrive at Gohan's room. He found himself in a room filled with all kinds of instruments. One of the walls was made of a large piece of transparent glass. It was pitch black outside the glass, and nothing could be seen. That was why Steel Centipede felt strange. He did not understand why the military governor had brought him here. There were no planes here, and there was no runway for planes to take off and land on. Who told you that I'm going to give you a plane ride? Gohan pushed one of the handles of the device, and the whole device lit up. Wartime backup power has been activated. Silo function has been activated. Power remaining at 10%. Continuous operation time will not exceed 10 minutes. A mechanical female voice rang out in the room, followed by a flash of light. The lighting in the room was switched on, followed by the lighting outside the window. When Steel Centipede saw the scene outside the window, she was shocked. Outside the window was a huge silo. A large missile with a skull drawn on it and the words, "Beware of radiation. Do not approach," was inserted in the center of this silo. Even though 700 years had passed, it was still shining brightly, as if it could be launched at any time. This is a nuclear bomb. Steel Centipede swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Steel Centipede had heard of the legend of nuclear bombs. On the 10th day after the apocalypse, humans, who had been defeated to the point where they could no longer retreat, tried to kill Yuan Ko with a nuclear bomb. However, Yuan Ko hid between the dimensional gaps, and the nuclear bomb did not cause any damage to Yuan Ko. It did not even kill the weakest rat-level Yuan Ko. Instead, it destroyed parts of the Earth and turned them into no man's land. However, the legend of the nuclear bomb was completely preserved. Steel Centipede was also a big fan of nuclear bombs. Steel Centipede also yearned for this most powerful firecracker in the world. He had been looking for a chance to see what a nuclear bomb looked like, but he never had the chance. He did not expect to see it today under such circumstances. I say, military governor, don't tell me you want us to go back in this. Steel Centipede swallowed another mouthful of saliva. Why not? The launch speed is 30 meters per second, and the flight speed is 6,000 meters per second. As long as we sit in this, it will only take us 200 seconds to get from here to Beijing. Have you heard of a saying from before the apocalypse? Gohan kept inputting all kinds of data into the instrument. As he typed, he laughed and joked. As the saying goes, Dongfeng Express mission accomplished. Rumble. Another series of loud collapses and explosions sounded. Judging from the direction of the sound, it was coming from the place where the aerial gunship had stopped. It seemed that the Nazi king had advanced there. Beep beep beep. Warning. Warning. The north area has been destroyed. The south area is about to be attacked. All control systems have been cut off. Switching to manual control. The computer sounded a series of alarms. It seemed that the north area was completely destroyed. Gohan didn't say anything, but the speed of his input increased. Military governor, what are you typing into the computer? Hongyu saw Gohan typing so fast that afterimages could be seen. She could not help but be curious. What the hell is this guy typing? Hacking the entire launch system's security system, as well as setting the launch time, launch destination coordinates, and other data. Gohan replied. Gohan planned to use Dongfeng Express, which was loaded with nuclear weapons. Just hacking the security system to protect the launch system from being hacked by others would be a huge amount of work. Military Governor, I didn't expect you to be a hacker. Hong Yu's eyes were sparkling. This man was so powerful, and he was actually a hacker. He was too talented. No, I'm not a hacker. I don't even know the most basic C language, Gohan quickly replied. But it's fine as long as someone knows it. When I came yesterday, I asked Yao Guang to ask a reliable hacker to demonstrate the entire operation process. I just need to remember the process. After hearing Gohan's words, Hong Yu's eyes lit up. If what Gohan said was true, then he had only watched the hacker's demonstration a few times, and he was able to remember every operation step and input letter. This kind of memory ability was much better than any hacker. System notification. Your party member, player Magic Pen, Lansang River has died and left the dungeon. At this time, such a notification suddenly appeared in the party channel. Magic Pen had actually died. It seems that the Nazi king has reached the aerial gunship. Yu Xizong's expression changed greatly. It's not far from here. Military Governor, how long will it take for you to complete the input? Soon, Gohan said loudly. Hong Yu, break the glass window for me quickly. Yes. After hearing Gohan's order, Hong Yu did not say anything else and smashed the glass wall in front of her into pieces. The moment the glass wall was smashed, Gohan threw the Yu King sword in his hand toward Dongfeng Express's warhead, and it was inserted into the warhead. Wow, big brother, this is a nuclear warhead. If you throw it in the wrong place and trigger the nuclear warhead, we're dead. Seeing the Yu King sword inserted into the warhead, Steel Centipede was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. All of you listen. Cut open the 1 square meter iron plate on the warhead with my sword as the circular position. There's a small space there that people can squeeze in. All of you hide in that space, quickly. Gohan ordered loudly. Oh my god, we're really going to take Dongfeng Express. Steel Centipede screamed and was the first to rush out. F***CK, to be able to ride a nuclear warhead around, even if I died, it would be worth it. What was there to be afraid of? Under Steel Centipede's charge, the huge nuclear warhead was cut open. Just as Gohan had said, there was a space inside. However, this space was very small, only about 100 million cubic meters. It was quite cramped to fit 6 people in such a small space. Steel Centipede, the Yu siblings, Hong Yu, and Artoria had spent a lot of effort to squeeze into this space. Be careful, Steel Centipede, there are 3 hydrogen warheads with a yield of 1 million kilograms next to you, Gohan hurriedly reminded, worried that Steel Centipede would do something unpredictable inside the warhead. Oh my god! 1 million kilograms! Steel Centipede was so excited that he was about to explode. To be able to ride Dongfeng Express with 3 hydrogen warheads was 100 times, 10,000 times more intense than any orgasm. Artoria, King Arthur, and the rest of you, I've found you. At this moment, the wall of the control room was smashed, and a Nazi in the form of a single mecha walked in. At this time, Gohan was still inputting control commands into the computer. Huh? You're the only lowly scum? Where's Artoria? The Nazi was not in a hurry to attack Gohan. Instead, he looked at his surroundings with interest and the Dongfeng Express that was in a firing state. Is this the final product of the Axis plan? What a beautiful weapon! The moment the Nazi saw the Dongfeng Express nuclear weapon, he fell into a state of obsession and admiration. The Axis plan was Nazi Germany's own nuclear weapons program. If this program had succeeded before Germany was destroyed, then Germany would have won another complete victory. The Nazi, who had reappeared in this world, deeply believed in this. It's beautiful, it's beautiful. The Nazi looked at the nuclear warhead and was intoxicated. He did not even care about the scum Gohan. I should have it, if only I had it. Then I'll give it to you. Gohan tapped the last button on the computer keyboard, then turned around and smiled at the Nazi. At this time, Gohan noticed that the Nazi's mecha was holding a long sword. This sword was none other than Magic Pen's Qingying sword. This was the trophy of the Nazi king. Hitler liked this trophy very much. Dongfeng Express, mission accomplished. 10 seconds until launch. 9 seconds. 8 seconds. Gohan sneered. He jumped up from the crack in the glass wall and onto the warhead. 7 seconds. 6 seconds. 5 seconds. It's going to launch? This is a wonderful thing. It's so good to see it launch with my own eyes. The Nazi Hitler became even more obsessed. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. At the last moment, Gohan successfully squeezed into that space. Then, he ordered Steel Centipede to take out his giant sword, Alendate, and stuck it at the entrance of the hole. This was like a railing, protecting Gohan's body that was closest to the hole, so that he wouldn't fall out of the hole when the sword was fired. 2 seconds. 1 second. Express launch, please sign. After a loud bang, a golden flame ignited. The Dongfeng Express rose from the ground and flew straight into the sky. Riding a nuclear warhead back to Yenjing was not something that would be unknown in the future, but it was at least unprecedented. Gohan and the others had become the first humans in history to use a nuclear warhead as a means of transportation. Congratulations! Chapter 211. Sitting on the warhead of the Dongfeng Express was not a pleasant experience, especially when the nuclear warhead started to accelerate and stabilized at a speed of 6,000 meters per second. During this process, the overload of hundreds of gs of pressure was enough to instantly crush any human into a pile of minced meat. Fortunately, the people sitting on the warhead were not ordinary people. Each of them had their own famed sword-level sword mistresses in their hands. While they enjoyed the physical attributes of a famed sword-level sword mistress, they also had a layer of protective shields protecting them. Only Artoria did not have these protective measures. But this was a piece of cake for her. This little bit of pressure was not enough to pose a threat to a universe-level Yuan Ko. The only one who looked a little terrible was Gohan himself. To be honest, Gohan was very uncomfortable. He felt as if a train was pressing down on him, and his lungs were about to be flattened. It could not be helped. After all, Gohan's sword essence was only about 4,500 quarks. The strength of his protective shield was far weaker than those around him, who easily had more than 100,000 quarks of sword essence. What was more frightening was that Gohan found that the energy of his protective shield was decreasing at an alarming rate. In less than 3 seconds, 40% of the shield's energy had been consumed. Why was this happening? The reason was simple. The shield would lose energy when it received damage. In a way, Gohan, who was under 100 times the gravity, felt as if someone was constantly hammering his chest with a 10-ton sledgehammer, or as if he was constantly enduring a full-force blow from a dragon-level Yuan Ko. Under such circumstances, it would be strange if the energy of Gohan's protective shield did not decrease. Who would have thought that all my calculations would fail at this step? Seeing this situation, Gohan sighed in his heart. He had calculated everything except for the fact that under such high-speed gravity, his protective shield might not even last 10 seconds, let alone 200 seconds. Once the protective shield broke, he would be dead. There was no other possibility. What was even more frightening was that Gohan could not even open his mouth. If he could not open his mouth, he would not be able to ask for help from the people around him. Gohan would probably suffocate to death inside the warhead. Are you okay? At this critical moment, Artoria, who was squeezed behind Gohan, noticed Gohan's abnormality. She was surprised to find that the leader who had saved everyone at this critical moment was pale, full of pain and fear, like a critically ill patient who could die at any moment. Gohan tried his best to stretch out a hand and place it on his chest. Only then did Artoria notice that Gohan's chest had almost been squashed into a pizza, from a bloated hamburger to a pizza. Artoria instantly realized that this person's body couldn't withstand such a strong gravity. But Artoria couldn't understand why this leader couldn't withstand it, even though his other teammates looked pale. They all seemed to be able to withstand it, so why couldn't he? Although she couldn't understand it, one thing was clear. Artoria had to save this man. It was this man who had saved her from danger and suffering. She had to save him. But at this moment, how could she save this man whose chest was flattened by the pressure of the atmosphere? Suddenly, Artoria thought of a balloon. As long as she blew this man's body up like a balloon, it would be fine. But if she blew on him, wouldn't that be? For no reason at all, Artoria's face turned red. As soon as Artoria had this thought, ripples appeared on the surface of Gohan's body, which meant that his protective shield had broken. If she didn't act now, Gohan would die. She couldn't delay any longer. Artoria decisively pulled Gohan into her arms, then turned his head so that Gohan's lips were facing her face. "I'm repaying a debt of gratitude," Artoria told herself. Then, she instantly lowered her head and pressed her lips against Gohan's. Then, she used her tongue to pry Gohan's lips open. She took a deep breath, inhaled a large amount of air, and suddenly exhaled, pouring a large mouthful of air into Gohan's mouth. Then, through the airway, it rushed directly into Gohan's lungs. The force of Artoria's full breath was no less than that of an air compressor. Artoria's breath instantly inflated his lungs, which had been pressed together from top to bottom, so that the atmospheric pressure inside and outside Gohan's body became balanced. Suddenly, Gohan's pale face became a little ruddy, and he looked a lot better. But this was completely dependent on Artoria's help. Once Artoria loosened her mouth, Gohan would probably return to his previous state, or even worse. This meant that he couldn't loosen his mouth for a long time. Muddle-headed Gohan felt a clear stream flowing from his lips into his brain. He opened his eyes and saw that Artoria's face was so close to his own, and her beautiful eyes were less than a finger's distance away from his own eyes. The two people's eyes met, and in Artoria's eyes, Gohan could see the stars, the moon, the tall and supreme throne, the battlefield littered with corpses, and the pain of not being able to live as she wished. In that instant, Gohan understood many things from Artoria's eyes. As if sensing that her heart had been seen through by Gohan, Artoria hurriedly closed her eyes, and a few traces of red flashed across her face. "Wow, Military Governor, you're too awesome. You've already started kissing? Military Governor, you're too awesome." At this time, Gunrun discovered the unusually intimate action between Gohan and Artoria, and let out an envious sigh. This Military Governor was really amazing. Not only was he a first-class player in clearing dungeons, but he was also many times better at picking up girls than Gunrun. Gunrun couldn't help but admire him. "Good brother. I want a kiss too." Yu Sikong and Yu Siyu, who were squeezed in the innermost area, saw this scene. The younger sister couldn't help but pout coquettishly. Then, the older brother Yu Sikong very considerately pressed his lips against his sister's lips. The two of them also started kissing passionately without restraint. Adulterous couple, shameless and shameless. The ashen-faced Hong Yu suddenly blurted out such a sentence. No one knew if she was talking about the Yu siblings or Gohan and Artoria. "Sister Hong Yu, why don't the two of us do that too? You see, I'm also an unyielding man." Gunrun shamelessly moved his head to Hong Yu's side, but in return, Hong Yu slapped him on the neck. "Get lost." After maintaining contact with Gohan's mouth for dozens of seconds, Artoria, whose mind was a mess, suddenly remembered something. She pushed Gohan away, took the sword of the lake's scabbard from her body, and stuffed it into Gohan's arms. The next moment, a light barrier enveloped the entire space of 1 square meter, and the hundreds of times the gravity instantly disappeared. The high-speed flying rocket was as leisurely as a car. Phew, I almost forgot that my scabbard has this function. Artoria blushed. Her Sword of the Lake's scabbard was a scabbard made by the elves, and it could form a space-stabilizing boundary to protect life within the boundary. Artoria's mind was a mess just now, and she actually forgot that her scabbard had this function. Gohan touched his lips regretfully, and then glanced at his personal terminal. Just now, Gohan felt a message being sent to his terminal, but because of the gravity, he didn't have the strength to notice it. Only now did he have the time to look at it. System notification. Respected player military governor, your team has successfully killed the universe-level Nazi king Yuan Ko. Congratulations on completing this almost impossible mission. Wait, the Nazi king is dead? What's going on? Is this an April Fool's joke? When Gunrun, the Yu siblings, and the others saw this mission notification, they couldn't understand it either. How could the Nazi king die? They had clearly escaped, and they hadn't even touched a single hair of the Nazi king. Military governor, did you do something? Did you? Now, whenever something inexplicable happened, Gunrun and the others would habitually think that it was Gohan's doing. In fact, it was mostly Gohan's doing. I don't know. Gohan also scratched his head in confusion. Although I set all the remaining 20 normal nuclear warheads to explode at the same time before I left, I don't think that would kill the Nazi king. After all, weapons of pure human civilization are useless against Yuan Ko. You lunatic, you actually set the remaining 20 nuclear warheads to explode at the same time. When Gunrun heard Gohan's words, he almost peed his pants. Gunrun thought that he was already very powerful, but he never imagined that he would meet someone even more powerful. This was 20 nuclear warheads exploding at the same time. The power was enough to destroy the entire Shaanxi province, and then blast a hole thousands of meters deep into the earth. How could this guy have the guts to do such a thing? Compared to Gohan, Gunrun suddenly felt that he was as ridiculous and insignificant as a primary school student. I didn't want to, but the hacker yesterday said that this was the side effect of forcefully breaking the security system. Unless I spend an hour to completely break the security system, that's obviously impossible, so I can only let the remaining nuclear warheads explode at the same time. Gohan explained very seriously, but obviously, Gunrun and the others didn't agree with this explanation. From Gunrun's point of view, Gohan had obviously set the nuclear warheads to explode after a certain number of seconds. Otherwise, why didn't the nuclear warheads around him explode? Since it was a counterattack by the security system, all the nuclear warheads should have exploded at the same time. As he said this, Gunrun couldn't help but touch the metal shell of the hydrogen bomb beside him. This was a hydrogen bomb with a yield of 1 million tons, and it felt great to touch. The Nazi king couldn't have been killed by a nuclear warhead. Weapons of pure human civilization don't work on us. Even if there were 200 of them, they wouldn't be able to kill the Nazi king, let alone 20. What did you do to kill the Nazi king? Artoria stared into Gohan's eyes. She had to figure this out, or she wouldn't be able to eat or sleep. Well, maybe it has something to do with the Tringying sword. Gohan thought for a moment and came up with a more reliable explanation. When I left, I saw the Tringying sword in the Nazi king's hand. I think the powerful shockwave must have hit the Tringying sword during the explosion, allowing the Tringying sword to pierce through the armor of the Third Reich and stab the Nazi king. At that time, the Nazi king was in his minimized mecha form, and without the Third Reich, Hitler was just an ordinary person. Once Hitler was stabbed, no matter how powerful the Third Reich was, it would be useless. This was the only possible explanation. In fact, Gohan also couldn't understand why the Nazi king would die there. It didn't make sense. Chapter 212. Get ready for my command. When I say jump, everyone jump down hand in hand with me. We must do it within 2 seconds. That's a distance of 12,000 meters. Do you hear me? Gohan ordered his team members. According to Gohan's settings, this nuclear warhead would fly over the sky of Yenjing City and not land near Yenjing City. If it caused a nuclear explosion near Yenjing City, it would be over. The vicinity of Yenjing City was not as uninhabited as the vicinity of Xianyang Airport, where there were no traces of people. There were tens of thousands of ordinary people working around Beijing City, as well as thousands of swordsmen patrolling and killing Yuan Ko. If it exploded near Beijing City, the number of NPCs killed would be estimated to be tens of thousands. At that time, Gohan's mission rating would definitely not reach S rank. Therefore, according to Gohan's settings, the nuclear bomb would fly over Beijing City and land on a city in Neon. After all, that city had suffered a nuclear explosion 1,000 years ago. It was better to go back to the original place and return to its original state. According to Gohan's calculations, the best landing spot over Beijing City was between 202.3 seconds and 205 seconds. Based on the calculation of inertia, the final landing spot was right above Miyun Reservoir. Without a parachute, jumping into the water was obviously the best landing spot. With the physical fitness of the swordsmen and the water as a buffer, even if they fell from a height of tens of thousands of meters, it was still possible for them to survive. Gohan stared closely at the time displayed by the system. When the time passed 202 seconds, Gohan immediately shouted, "Jump!" He grabbed Artoria's little hand and jumped down from the hole. They jumped down from an object flying at a high speed of 6,000 meters per second, almost 20 times the speed of sound. Artoria held Hong Yu's hand, Hong Yu held Steel Centipede's hand, Steel Centipede held Yu Sitsong's hand, and Yu Sikong held her sister's hand. The 6 of them jumped down like a centipede. The experience of jumping from tens of thousands of meters in the air was very magical. The high-speed friction between their bodies and the atmosphere quickly raised the surface temperature of their bodies to over 100 degrees. Fortunately, they had their personal shields, or else Gohan and the others would have been burned into a pile of charcoal. The 6 of them couldn't hold hands for long in the sky. Soon, Hong Yu let go of the Steel Centipede, and the Yu siblings also let go of the Steel Centipede. The original team of 6 was divided into 3 groups, and they quickly distanced themselves from each other. In the end, they landed several kilometers away from each other. The clouds in the sky gradually dissipated, and a large lake appeared in front of Gohan's eyes. This was the Miyun Reservoir that had once supplied the entire Yenjing City with drinking water. It was still the reservoir that supplied the entire Yenjing City, and the new Yenjing Base City still relied on the Miyun Reservoir for its water supply. Zhu Qingfeng was the commander of the entire Miyun Reservoir, and he was in charge of the 108 sword-bearers guarding the Miyun Reservoir. Because the Miyun Reservoir was related to the drinking water safety of the tens of millions of people in the Yenjing Base City, the Yenjing Base City had always placed a large number of soldiers and experts in the Miyun Reservoir to prevent the city's water source from being destroyed. As the commander of the entire Miyun Reservoir, Zhu Qingfeng was an immortal sword-tier sword-bearer, and he had 3 spirit sword-tier sword-bearers under him. With this kind of strength, even if he were to face the attack of a run-level Yuan Ko, he could rely on the nearby defensive facilities to resist for more than 10 minutes, ensuring that these sword-bearers could safely retreat. Yuan Ko was also very wise to not provoke the Miyun Reservoir, who would have the time to find trouble with an immortal sword-tier sword-bearer. Suddenly, a subordinate ran out and reported to Zhu Qingfeng with a strange expression, "Commander, there's something that you'd better come out and take a look at." Seeing the strange expression on his subordinate's face, Zhu Qingfeng also felt that it was very strange. Thus, when he walked out, he saw a few sword-bearers walking over with a man and a woman dripping wet. "Everyone on guard. Release the sword maidens. Prepare to attack." Once he saw who it was, Zhu Qingfeng's hair stood on end, and he immediately ordered the surrounding sword-bearers to be on guard and prepare to attack. As an immortal sword-tier sword-bearer, how could he not recognize King Arthur Artoria, one of the 10 kings of the Martyr's Palace? In fact, Zhu Qingfeng had fought with Artoria once before. If he hadn't escaped quickly, he would have probably died at Artoria's hands. Long time no see, King Arthur. You actually have the guts to come here. Do you think you can block the attacks of 108 of us alone? Zhu Qingfeng shouted. He really couldn't understand why King Arthur would suddenly come here, and it seemed like he had fallen into the water. What, this person is actually King Arthur. King Arthur was famous, and the surrounding sword-bearers had never imagined that they would save a Yun-level Yuan Ko. They were so scared that their hair stood on end. They released their sword maidens and waited for Zhu Qingfeng's order to surround and attack Artoria. Wait, Senior Qingfeng, we have no ill intentions. This King Arthur is no longer Yuan Ko. She is already a human, and she is now on our side. She is here to abandon the dark and seek the light. In fact, we just escaped from the Nazi king's pursuit. Senior Qingfeng, I am a famous sword-bearer in Yanjing City. I would never lie to you. Abandon the dark and seek the light. Zhu Qingfeng seemed to have heard a very funny joke. In this day and age, he would rather believe that pigs could climb trees than believe that Yuan Ko would abandon the dark and seek the light, especially a Yuan Ko like King Arthur. I think you must have been bewitched by Yuan Ko. Everyone, listen to my command. Let's attack together and kill this King Arthur. Zhu Qingfeng was about to give the order to attack. Stop! Guhan suddenly shouted, causing Zhu Qingfeng's words to be stuck in his throat. Senior Qingfeng, please give me 5 seconds. I can prove that we have no ill intentions. After saying that, Guhan walked to Artoria's side and whispered in her ear, Let me borrow your sword of the lake. Then, he took Artoria's sword of the lake and threw it to Zhu Qingfeng, who was watching in a daze. Zhu Qingfeng subconsciously caught the sword of the lake. Senior Qingfeng, King Arthur's sword of the lake has been handed over to you. Without the sword of the lake, King Arthur's combat power is not even at the U level. Now, you can believe our sincerity, right? Guhan was right. It was as if all the sword-bearers' combat power was on their sword lady. Knight King Artoria's combat power was also on her sword of the lake. Without the sword of the lake, Artoria's combat power was not even at the nether level, let alone the U level Yuan Ko. Her strength had dropped by more than 2 levels. Is this really the sword of the lake? Zhu Qingfeng touched the sword of the lake in his hand in disbelief. Suddenly, a woman who looked like clear water walked out from behind him. She was Zhu Qingfeng's immortal sword lady. Dear friend, this is the sword of the lake. She was the one who fought with me last time. I remember her aura. It's the real sword of the lake. Seeing that the immortal sword lady had taken the initiative to take the blame, Guhan was overjoyed and immediately said, Senior Qingfeng, you can contact the higher-ups in Beijing. The higher-ups know about our operation, and they were the ones who ordered us to save King Arthur. As long as you tell them that King Arthur, Artoria, was rescued by the military governor's team, they will know. This. Zhu Qingfeng looked at Guhan suspiciously. Then, he took out a communication device from his waist and dialed the Beijing base's communication channel. After some careful communication, Zhu Qingfeng finally put down the communication device, looked at Guhan, and nodded. It's been hard on you, brave sword-bearers. You have rescued King Arthur, and you are the heroes of humanity. The humans will remember your contributions. Zhu Qingfeng was one of the higher-ups of humanity, so it was easy for him to say such encouraging words. In fact, 300 years later, no one remembered who the famous sword-bearers who had rescued Artoria were. Guhan had specially searched for information and discovered that the detailed information on the famous sword-bearers who had rescued Artoria had been classified as SS-level confidential information and had been sealed. Even Gohan's hacker friends could not obtain such information. In this world, other than some of the higher-ups, no one knew which sword-bearers had been in the team that had rescued Artoria. Senior Qingfeng, I still have 4 teammates scattered in this Mune reservoir. Senior, please send someone to search for them quickly. Gohan hurriedly said. With Zhu Qingfeng's help, he believed that he would be able to find Steel Centipede and the others very soon. Okay, I'll make the arrangements now. Before Zhu Qingfeng could finish speaking, Steel Centipede and the other 3 appeared beside Gohan. It turned out that they had been targeted by the patrolling boats in the sky and had been fished out as soon as they fell into the water. However, the place where they had landed was quite far from the administrative center, so they had been sent over. Okay, since all of you are here, there's no time to lose. Follow me back to Beijing. The Secretary of the Municipal Sword Committee has specially instructed me to let you return to Beijing as soon as possible. He has also specially asked me to protect you. Let's move forward quickly. At the entrance of Beijing Bay City, 2 higher-ups were welcoming Artoria. The group of people alighted from Zhu Qingfeng's large hovercraft. I never thought that there would be a day when I would be able to walk into the city walls of Beijing. Artoria looked at the city gates, and her eyes suddenly became moist. She did not know how much she had sacrificed for this moment. Welcome, King Arthur, Your Majesty Artoria. Welcome to our Beijing Bay City. The higher-ups who came out to welcome her shook Artoria's hand and pulled her into the city. Artoria took a few steps and turned her head. She suddenly realized that Gohan and the others were standing there motionless. She was puzzled, so she shook off the hands of the higher-ups and ran back to Gohan's side. Military Governor, why aren't you going in? You are all heroes too. Artoria was very puzzled. Why didn't Military Governor enter Beijing Bay City? We have to go. We still have other things to do, so we won't be entering Beijing Bay City. Gohan smiled and put his hand on Artoria's shoulder. In fact, he had already heard the news that the dungeon had been completed. In 30 seconds, he would leave the dungeon and return to the dungeon settlement center. Well, Military Governor, we'll be leaving first. You guys continue. Steel Centipede laughed loudly and disappeared in an instant. He had already taken the initiative to return to the city and returned to the dungeon settlement center. The Yu siblings and Hong Yu also glanced at Gohan and returned to the dungeon settlement center. Only Gohan was still in the dungeon. Where did they go? Teleportation magic? Artoria asked curiously. She did not expect Gohan to suddenly touch her cheek. Military Governor, what are you doing? Woo. Artoria was suddenly stunned. This Military Governor actually placed his lips on hers. He actually took the initiative to kiss her. He even stuck his tongue in. Isn't this what French beasts like to do? This kiss lasted for more than 10 seconds. It lasted for more than 10 seconds under the watchful eyes of the onlookers in Beijing. When Gohan's lips parted, Artoria still had not reacted to what had happened. Artoria, I don't know where the real you is, but I swear, I will find you in the future. After leaving this inexplicable sentence, Gohan's figure completely disappeared. In the real world, King Arthur Artoria had been missing for 300 years. No one knew where she was, except for one person. Chapter 213. As there were only 2 days left, the theme of the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center remained the same as the last time Dragon Feather was here. It was still the Sahara Desert. Amidst the golden sky, Steel Centipede and the others were already seated. Even Wondrous Pen, who had died earlier, was seated there. As this was a guild instance dungeon, even if a guild member died, as long as the guild completed the quest, the dead guild member could still receive his reward from the Instance Dungeon's settlement center. Wondrous Pen was in a good state. When Gohan appeared, he greeted Gohan with a smile and congratulated Gohan for successfully completing the Instance Dungeon. However, Steel Centipede was the only one who was not afraid of anything and chose to sit together with Wondrous Pen. The other guild members had deliberately distanced themselves from Wondrous Pen. After entering, they did not even say a word to Wondrous Pen. After all, they had to survive in Yaoguang's sword faction. Casually chatting with a traitor would be akin to giving the traitor a handle. However, Gohan did not deliberately distance himself from Wondrous Pen. He casually shook hands with Wondrous Pen and said, "Congratulations." At the end of the day, Gohan was just an outsider who had temporarily joined Yaoguang's sword faction. He was a temporary worker who received remuneration. After the instant's dungeon was over, Gohan would have nothing to do with Yaoguang's sword faction. There was no need for him to be afraid of such things. Mr. Military Governor is truly an outstanding person. Although I have long since reminded Teacher Ba Yun not to ignore your role, it is clear that Teacher Ba Yun has placed too much trust in my cute junior brother, resulting in the current situation. At that moment, Wondrous Pen seemed to have completed the transition from Yaoguang's sword faction to Stormy Wave's sword faction. Every time he opened his mouth, he would talk about Stormy Wave's sword faction. "Wondrous Pen, you are young Master Ba Yun's disciple?" Gohan looked at Wondrous Pen with interest. Steel Centipede and the others were also stunned. Wondrous Pen was actually young Master Ba Yun's disciple. However, thinking about it carefully, before Gohan appeared, Wondrous Pen had always been the #1 brain of Yaoguang's sword faction. Although his intelligence was not as good as Gohan's, the difference was not big. It was not surprising that young Master Ba Yun had nurtured such a top talent. "I'm just an in-name disciple. In Teacher Ba Yun's eyes, I'm afraid only junior brother Long Yu is his true disciple. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thrown me into the Alcade Sword sect as a spy." When Wondrous Brush said this, his tone was shockingly cold. It seems Wondrous Pen is dissatisfied with his treatment. This time, Wondrous Brush's return to the Surging Waves sword sect is probably a ticking time bomb that could explode at any time. Gohan pondered silently in his heart, but he wasn't too concerned about it. Be it the great waves of the Azure Billows or the Alcade Sword sect, it didn't have much to do with him. Wondrous King, Wondrous Chin asked. Magic, Wondrous Demon asked. He as Wondrous Brush. He was you, Military Governor Dragon. Are we still friends? Wondrous Pen asked Gohan sincerely. Yes. Gohan turned his head and stared at Wondrous Pen for a few seconds. In the future, if Wondrous Pen's Great Waves Wondrous Pen needs Mr. Military Governor Dragon's help, will Mr. Military Governor Dragon do me a favor? Wondrous Pen continued with a smile. However, his words made the other people from Yaoguang's sword faction nervous. How would Military Governor Dragon answer this question? I won't do you a favor. Although you are my friend, your face isn't worth it. Gohan's words made Wondrous Pen's face stiffen. The people around him felt relieved. But in the next moment, Gohan's next sentence turned the situation around. I will only do you a favor based on benefits. As long as Wondrous Pen or Great Waves Wondrous Pen can offer enough benefits, any deal is negotiable. Gohan said with a smile. Understood. Wondrous Pen bowed to Gohan, then returned to his seat and didn't speak anymore. After a series of verbal confrontations and probing, when Gohan sat on the sofa's main seat, the cashier who had been sitting there for a long time waited for all the members to arrive before saying the first line. The entire Instance Dungeon settlement had officially begun. Dear players, Cashier 0791 is at your service. Hearing the name 0791, Gohan's body stiffened. This number was too familiar. Ever since he entered the game, he had cleared the King of Yu's Gojin sword and the Wudong sect's Apex dungeon. The person who came out to settle his accounts seemed to be this person with the number 0791. He didn't expect it to be her the third time. Gohan raised his head and carefully stared at 0791's face. As all the cashier NPCs were made from the same face template, It was impossible to find anything wrong with her appearance. Gohan tried to find some clues from her facial expressions and movement. If Gohan's guess was right, and Bat really had their eyes on him, then this Cashier 0791 was most likely not a fixed NPC, but an NPC possessed by a high-level AI program. Since it was a high-level artificial intelligence program, being stared at by him like this, it was bound to reveal some emotional fluctuations. However, even though Gohan was about to stare at 0791's face, this NPC still didn't show any emotions. Instead, she calmly dealt with the various matters of the instance dungeon. Hello, respected player military governor. Player Wondrous Pen Langkanjiang. Player Steel Meatball. Player Hong Yu. Player Yu Sikong. Player Yu Siu. Your instance dungeon, King Arthur's Betrayal, has completed the statistics. Do you want to start settlement? You can also choose to enjoy the scenery here. Our settlement center's theme for today is the Great Sahara Desert. This was already a standard speech. 0791 was no different from the other cashiers. Begin settlement. Although the Yu siblings and Hong Yu seemed to be very interested in seeing some of the rare desert scenery, it was clear that Gohan wasn't interested. After Wondrous Pen's identity was exposed, his authority collapsed. Gohan's authority in this team was irreplaceable. Although Gohan was only a newbie swordsman with 4,500 quarks of sword essence, as soon as his words left his mouth, Steel Centipede and the other veteran swordsman players with more than 100,000 quarks of sword essence could only put away their thoughts of playing to their heart's content and obediently wait for the instance dungeon's settlement. Main Mission 1 has been completed. Main Mission 2 has been completed. Main Mission 7 has an abnormal status. Mission 7 has been cancelled. Hidden Mission 1 has been triggered. Side Mission completed. Instance dungeon successfully cleared. Total time taken, 3 hours 58 minutes 24 seconds. Beginning mission evaluation. Evaluation criteria, unknown. Evaluation result, SS class. Congratulations to player military governor's team for successfully clearing the instance dungeon, King Arthur's Betrayal, with an evaluation of S class and above. Achievement for clearing the instance dungeon for the first time achieve. Reward for clearing the Sex first clear achieve. Hidden instance dungeon unlock. Congratulations to player military governor, player Wondrous Pen Lansong River, player Steel Maiden Meatball, player Hong Yu, player Yu Sikong, player Yu Siu. You have created history and left your great names in the history of Sword Maiden Online. May I ask if you would like to broadcast to the entire channel and let all the players share your joy and success? This kind of broadcast to the entire channel required the permission of the players. Previously, Gohan's broadcast to the entire channel had been approved by default. However, now that it involved an entire team, Gohan naturally needed to confirm it again. Sure. Gohan answered very straightforwardly. For this first clear, all the major sword sects had fought each other to the death. What was it for? Wasn't it for this exciting and famous broadcast to the entire channel? If Gohan dared to say no, he was afraid that Yaoguang would take his case to the Swordsman Arbitration Court. Broadcast to the entire channel. Ding dong! With the efforts of Yaoguang's sword sect's elite swordbearers, military governor, Wondrous Pen Lansong River, Steel Maiden Meatball, Hong Yu Yu Sikong, and Yu Siu, they have cleared the instance dungeon King Arthur's Betrayal with an SS class evaluation and obtained the title King Arthur's Saviors. Their fame has spread far and wide. Broadcast to the entire channel. Ding dong! The instance dungeon King Arthur's Betrayal has been cleared by an SS class. The entrance to the instance dungeon will be temporarily closed for 24 hours. After 24 hours, it will become a famed sword-grade normal instance dungeon and open to all players. Players who are famed sword-grade or below can enter the instance dungeon through the entrance of Xianyang City Airport ruins. Let us once again thank the 6 King Arthur's saviors for their dedication to the world. In a certain room of the Stormy Waves Sword Sect's encampment, Ojen, who was holding a novel titled, The Last Military Governor of the Shipgirl World, seemed to be reading it seriously. However, in reality, she hadn't even flipped a page in the past 10 minutes. Suddenly, she heard the sudden broadcast to the entire channel. Puff. Ojen slammed the book shut and stood up. She wanted to do something, but after standing there for a few minutes, she suddenly sat back down and flipped to the first page of the novel. This time, she really started to read the novel. A few seconds later, all the management of the Stormy Waves Sword Sect received a message from Ojen and Ojen, "Don't bother me for 24 hours." The rocking chair in young Master Ba Yun's bedroom suddenly stopped. The sickly young Master Ba Yun sat up abruptly and stretched out his hand, as if he wanted to grab something. But in the end, his hand drooped down powerlessly and remained motionless. Then, his entire body disappeared from the game as if it was an illusion. Another one of the old fellows left behind from the era of doomsday bureaucrats had fallen. On the throne of the Yaoguang Sword Sect's hall, Yaoguang remained seated. He had been sitting on his throne for a full 4 hours without saying a word. He didn't even open his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking with his eyes closed. When the news of his sect's success came, he suddenly opened his eyes. He instantly pulled out a jade-green longsword from his back and slashed with all his might. A giant dragon flew out from both sides of the blade and slashed half of the hall into ruins. "What's going on? What's going on?" A few swordsmen outside the door rushed out. They thought that it was Yuan Ko who had come to kill them, but when they saw that the culprit was their own sect master, they didn't know what to say. "Did you all hear the broadcast?" Seeing the swordsmen nodding excitedly, Yaoguang finally couldn't suppress his smile. "Call our sect's architect over. I'm sick of this hall. We'll build a new one." "Hooray!" the swordsmen shouted together. Looking at the entire Yaoguang Sword Sect's encampment from the hall, the entire Yaoguang Sword Sect was immersed in a celebration. They defeated the Stormy Waves Sword Sect. They won! Chapter 214. Esteemed players, we will now enter the reward calculation phase. First, the basic reward. Before 0791 could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Gohan. "Please wait a moment. If I remember correctly, as the ones who unlocked the dungeon, we should have the right to understand the factors that determine the rating of the dungeon, right?" Gohan asked with a smile. Before the first clear of the hidden dungeon, the rules of the dungeon's rating were kept secret. However, after the dungeon was successfully cleared, Gohan and the others would be able to know the details of the rules. This was the right of every player who had put in a lot of effort to clear the dungeon. As for other players, if they wanted to figure out the rules of the dungeon's rating, they could only slowly figure it out through a large number of dungeon clearing attempts. This was a very difficult task, and it was impossible to accomplish in a short period of time. This gave Gohan the opportunity to make money. After exiting the Dungeon Calculation Center, Gohan would write down a detailed strategy for the King Arthur's Betrayal dungeon on the forum. Then, he would post it on the internet and sell it for a price. This kind of strategy post was known as the First Clear Strategy Post. Within 3 months after the hidden dungeon was unlocked, other than the First Clear team's post, other players were not allowed to post any other strategy posts for this dungeon. If they violated this rule, the player would be imprisoned in the real world. This was also one of the game's rewards for the First Clear team. In order to enter the dungeon as soon as possible, they would be the first to clear the dungeon. Most players would reluctantly fork out $5 or $10 for a subscription. Generally speaking, it would not be a problem for the number of subscriptions to exceed 10 million within 3 months. Based on the price of $5 per copy, that would be a large sum of 50 million RMB. In reality, this amount of income would often exceed 80 million RMB. This was because there would always be some rich people who would give a large sum of money. In the past, a rich person had given a record of 6 million RMB to a single copy of the first clear strategy post in Great Kanglan Wave. With a total of 56 million RMB, it had set a record for the most generous reward in history and was praised by later generations. According to the agreement between Guhan and Yaoguang, he and Yaoguang's sword sect would split the income from this guide 50-50. Even if there was no reward, around 25 million renminbi would be directly transferred to Guhan's account, and the remaining 25 million would be transferred to Yaoguang's sword faction's account. As for how Yaoguang would reward his members and how they would split the rewards, it had nothing to do with Guhan. The instance dungeon's rating conditions were one of the essential contents of the guide. If Guhan didn't post the rating conditions, the rewards would probably plummet. You didn't even give me a rating, and you still have the nerve to ask for a reward for this post? This is the right of the victor, player Guhan. 0791 nodded silently, then quickly and monotonously recited frowny face. This instance dungeon is a multi-condition scoring instance dungeon. There are 5 main scoring conditions. Scoring condition 1. Artoria must maintain a pure and untainted state. If this condition is not met, all will be rated as F. If condition 5 is not met, the highest rating will be rated as S. Also, please note that if Artoria is insulted or sexually harassed while unconscious, Artoria will be in an impure state. Scoring condition 2. There must be at least 3 survivors in the team. If there are less than 3, all will be rated as F. If there are more than 3, for every death of a member, the score will drop by 1 level. If condition 5 is not met, the highest rating will be rated as S. Scoring condition 3. If you receive Merlin's blessing and don't let Merlin put Artoria down with magic, your score will drop by 1 level. If condition 5 is not met, the highest rating will be rated as S. Scoring condition 4. The NPC sword bearer responsible for protecting the player must not die. If an NPC sword bearer dies, their score will drop by 1 level. If condition 5 is not met, the highest rating will be rated as S. Scoring condition 5. Kill 1 or more of the 3 universe level Yuan Ko. If condition 5 is met, the highest rating will be rated as SSS or above. 0791 quickly read out the list of conditions. The others had a headache as they still didn't understand how the scoring was done. Of course, Gu Han and Wondrous Brush, these 2 smart people, fully understood this grading condition. To put it simply, the first condition was a premise. If this premise was not met, the score would be fixed at the lowest F and couldn't be increased. Conditions 1, 2, and 3 were a series of subtractions. The total score would be rated as S. Then, according to the subtractions of 1, 2, and 3, the remaining score would be the corresponding grade. If they wanted to get a score above S, they had to kill 1 or 2 or 3 of the 3 universe level Yuan Ko, Nazi King Hitler, Law King Hammurabi, or 4 elephants King Li Yuanba. Only when this condition was met could the other 3 conditions above condition 5 be rated as SSS. As Gu Han's party was lucky enough to kill the Nazi king, they fulfilled the 5th condition. That was why they were given an SSS grade overall score. Condition 1 was naturally met and condition 3 was also met. As for condition 4, Gohan's team didn't even encounter the NPC swordsman team that was prepared to protect them in Siping City. Naturally, condition 4 was also met. Only condition 2, Magic Pen, died, causing Gohan's total score to be deducted by 1 point. Otherwise, Gohan would have been able to directly clear the hidden dungeon with a super SSS rating, creating an unprecedented record. Since the start of the game, no team had been able to complete the first clear with an SSS rating. Thinking about it, it was a pity. Gohan couldn't help but dislike Magic Pen. In response, Magic Pen could only helplessly shrug his shoulders. Player Military Governor. Player Magic Pen Lansong River. Player Steel Meatball. Player Hong Yu. Player Yu Sikong. Player Yu Siu. Now, we will be giving you the rewards for completing the dungeon. First, the basic reward for completing the dungeon. 600 renminbi, 600 essence sword pills, 600 sword scar dust. Under normal circumstances, the basic reward for completing a famed sword instance dungeon was 100. However, Gohan had cleared a 6-man dungeon, so the basic reward was naturally 6 times that. Player Military Governor. P.S. I've left out a bunch of team names in case you guys say I'm weak. This is the first time your dungeon team has cleared the King Arthur's Betrayal dungeon. You can enjoy the benefits of double the first time clearing the dungeon. Your team's overall rating for clearing the dungeon is SS. According to the rules, you can enjoy 30 times the basic reward for the team. Player Military Governor. Your team's final dungeon reward. 18,000 renminbi, 18,000 essence sword pills, 18,000 sword scar dust. Please continue to work hard and reach new heights. Player Military Governor, you are the team leader. Please distribute the team rewards. Please distribute the rewards according to the criteria of no less than 5% for each player and no more than 50% for each team member. TSK, according to 0791, if Gohan did not like anyone in his party, he would be given the lowest 5%, which was 900, and then 50%, which was 9,000, for himself. It did not make any sense at all. It did not make sense for a party leader to have such a privilege. It was not fair at all. However, this was a method the system specifically used to strengthen the team's authority. If a team member did not follow the team leader's instructions during an instance dungeon, it would be a very troublesome matter. However, the team leader did not have a good way to punish such a team member. Thus, the system came up with this rule, using the final reward distribution to establish the team leader's authority and prestige. If you dare to cause trouble, don't even think about getting a good reward. Some players might ask, what if I listen to the team leader's instructions, but the team leader, for the sake of his own interests or because he dislikes me, forcefully gives me the lowest reward? Truth be told, this kind of situation is very rare. That is because this kind of situation only occurs in wild teams. Generally speaking, it would not be a team from a sword sect. If the team leader of a sword sect dared to do such a thing, his reputation would be tarnished, he would be kicked out of his sect. Who would give him the chance to become the team leader? Players would generally not find wild teams to participate in an instance dungeon. If they were forced to find wild teams, they would first apply to the system to monitor the entire process. Once the team leader's reward distribution was uneven, they could complain to the accountant on the spot. The accountant would let the system's AI analyze the entire instance dungeon. After confirming that no team members were disobeying the team leader's instructions, the system would strip the team leader's reward and distribute all the rewards equally to the remaining team members. As for the team leader himself, he would enjoy the reward of being banned for a month. If there was a second time, he would be banned for a year. Thus, situations where the team leader's reward distribution was unfair were very rare. Back to the topic of Gohan. Although it was very tempting to give 50% of the reward to himself, and he believed that the other team members would not care about it, they were all experts with hundreds of thousands of sword elements. These rewards were not very important to them. The total reward was only 18,000, and if it was divided equally, each of them would only get 3,000. It was not worth it to fall out with Gohan over such a small amount of reward. However, Gohan did not intend to get 50% of the reward for himself. Gohan also did not want to leave behind evidence of his greed in front of others for the sake of these sword elements. Divide it equally, Gohan said calmly. He did not even deduct Magic Pen's share. Logically speaking, it was not unreasonable for Gohan to give him 5%. Okay, everyone, keep your rewards. Hence, the large pile of rewards was divided into 6 equal portions and placed in front of everyone. However, It did not take long before Steel Centipede jumped up and pointed at his reward. That's not right. The amount is wrong. It's not right? Gohan was stunned. The reward was missing? Impossible. The system would not make a mistake in the reward. This kind of mistake was too low level. Sword Maiden Online had been in operation for more than 200 years, and such a thing had never happened before. Miss 0791, why is this reward 3,100? Why is there an extra 100? Steel Centipede asked loudly. So it's an extra 100. Brat, it's fine if you keep it to yourself. Why did you say it out loud? Sorry, I forgot to explain to you. Before you, there was a team that cleared the dungeon with an F-grade result. However, because they did not complete the first clear, the reward was not distributed. Instead, it was distributed to the first team that completed the first clear. That is, your team. So this is the reward of my junior brother Long Yu. Magic Pen said with a bitter smile. This was too ridiculous. Chapter 215. Congratulations to player Military Governor. This is the first time your party has cleared the Eating Instance dungeon. Furthermore, you have obtained an SS rating. Every member of your party will enjoy 10 times the chance of twisting the egg. Your party has achieved an F rating. You can do an egg twisting once. 0791 expressionlessly waved his hand on the large coffee table. A row of 6 egg twisting machines appeared on the coffee table. It seemed that he wanted Gohan and the other 5 to twist the egg together. Logically speaking, it was definitely more exciting to twist the egg in a party than to twist the egg alone. Even if you managed to twist the golden egg alone, it would be the same. It was fine if you cheered for a while. However, once the party twisted the egg together, it would be a lot of fun. A white egg could make you laugh at your teammates for half a day. Similarly, a purple egg could make your teammates hug your thighs and beg you to bring them to Europe. Are we going to twist the egg together or individually? Hong Yu looked at the egg twister in front of her and asked eagerly. There were generally 2 ways to twist the egg in a party. The first way was for everyone to twist the egg at the same time. Then, every time they twisted the egg, they would compete with each other, compare, flatter, and ridicule each other's luck. The advantage of twisting the egg this way was that it was fast. Moreover, if one failed the first time, there would be another chance to compete. The second method was for one person to finish the number of times they could twist the eggs, and then switch to the next person to twist the eggs one by one. This method was slower, but it was the best way to test a person's character. Both methods were very enjoyable. Let's do it together. It's more fun this way. Gohan laughed. Compared to twisting the egg alone, twisting the egg with a party was indeed more fun. They had not even started twisting the egg yet, but he felt that the atmosphere was about to explode. Military Governor, I, Steel Centipede, admit that I may not be as smart as you. However, when it comes to luck, you are definitely no match for me, Steel Centipede. When Steel Centipede heard Gohan say that they should twist the egg together, he immediately jumped up and patted his chest forcefully, provoking him loudly. Since he could not beat this man in terms of intelligence, he would beat him in terms of luck. However, Steel Centipede obviously did not know that he had already raised a huge flag for himself. Steel Centipede took the lead and pressed hard on his own egg machine. The machine spun for a long time. In the end, an embarrassing thing happened. A white egg rolled out. Congratulations to player Steel Centipede Meatball. You have obtained a white egg. You have obtained 1 yuan from twisting it. 0791 impolitely read out the answer that almost made Steel Centipede Meat Centipede's heart collapse. It's no big deal. White will come out sooner or later. Steel Centipede Meat Centipede said forcefully. Steel Centipede Centipede. It's no big deal. White Egg Centipede White Centipede. Congratulations, player Hong Yu. You have obtained a white twisted egg. You have extracted 1 yuan from it. White Lotus. Ha ha. Hong Yu, you still have the nerve to laugh at me? Ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. Seeing that Hong Yu's result was exactly the same as his, Steel Centipede almost fell off the sofa with laughter. But then, the Yu siblings slapped Steel Centipede's face. Both of them twisted a blue egg at the same time. Moreover, these 2 blue eggs miraculously produced 2 sword scar raw stones. These were 5th grade sword scar powder, which required 625 portions of sword scar powder to produce 1 portion of sword scar raw stone. It was meant for a 5th grade sword lady, and it was considered a very good reward among the blue eggs. The market price was around 800 renminbi. Steel Centipede looked at the Yu siblings enviously, then looked at Magic Pen and Gohan. At this time, only the 2 of them were not twisting their eggs. Magic Pen smiled and twisted the capsule machine in front of Gohan. A white capsule came out, and it was still 1 yuan. Gohan followed closely behind. He also got a white egg, but it was no longer $1. Instead, it was a token of the white iron sword. Gohan had lost count of the number of times he had gotten the token of the white iron sword. In short, the Yu siblings won a good prize in the first round. They were so excited that they kissed each other on the spot. Damn it, I don't believe that it's still going to be a white thing. La 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 la, I'm going to at least twist out a blue egg this time. The Iron Centipede continued to raise flags for himself without holding back. Congratulations to player Steel Centipede. You have obtained a white egg. You have twisted 1 yuan from it. 0791's voice was calm and emotionless, but in Steel Centipede's ears, it sounded like the most profound mockery. Damn it, I don't want to live anymore. Steel Centipede sat on the sand angrily and scratched his ears desperately. The feeling of being laughed at was really terrible. You're just an Antarctic man. Don't even think about becoming a European. Think of a way to get to Africa first. Hong Yu said mockingly. Then, she pressed a button on the capsule machine. Congratulations to player Hong Yu. You have obtained a white egg. You have twisted 1 yuan from it. Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. I'm really dying of laughter. Steel Centipede lay on the sand and laughed until his stomach hurt uncontrollably. I forgot to mention that I'm also from Antarctica. Hong Yu's words sounded very calm. However, the emphasis that she emphasized through gritted teeth was definitely not calm. I'll do the next one. Seeing Steel Centipede's expression, Gohan could not help but cut in line and twist his own egg. Congratulations, Commander! You've obtained a purple twisted egg. From within, you've extracted the Leifeng Pagoda Crusade Mission Crusade letter. Unexpectedly, with just a twist, Gohan actually extracted a purple twisted egg. The Leifeng Pagoda Crusade mission might not be a rare crusade mission. However, in terms of rewards, it was top-notch. In particular, the Leifeng Pagoda Crusade mission had a 0.001% chance of dropping a keepsake of the Emperor Wa's sword. This was an Emperor's sword lady. A keepsake of the Emperor Wa's sword was sold for 900 million yuan in the market. Of course, it was simply wishful thinking to think that a keepsake of the Emperor Wa's sword could be obtained from a Leifeng Pagoda Crusade mission. However, it would be very easy to sell it for a few 100,000 yuan in the auction house. In terms of value, it was already worth the purple egg. Ah! I don't want to live anymore. I'm going to kill you, military governor. Steel Centipede pounced on Gohan like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. Logically speaking, if Gohan wanted to dodge, Steel Centipede would not be able to hit Gohan no matter what. However, Gohan had no intention of dodging. He allowed Steel Centipede to pounce on him and throw him onto a pile of sand. Steel Centipede sat on Gohan's lap. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at Gohan's face. Gohan accidentally threw a large mouthful of sand into his mouth, which was filled with a bitter taste. Gohan did not want to be outdone. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at Steel Centipede's head. The two of them instantly started a yellow sand battle, which involved all the surrounding team members. The Yu siblings also joined the battle. Finally, it was Gohan who threw a few handfuls of sand onto her beautiful hair. Immediately, Hong Yu became angry. She let out a strange cry and grabbed 2 handfuls of sand and threw them at Gohan's body. It was clearly thrown at Gohan. Why did it hit Steel Centipede instead? Forget it, it doesn't matter. Losing Steel Centipede is not a big deal. With a leap, Hong Yu also rode on Gohan's face. Ahem, that's right, it was Gohan's face. Because Steel Centipede was already riding on her, Hong Yu was too embarrassed to fight with Steel Centipede. She also did not want to get too close to Steel Centipede, so she simply rode on Gohan's face and grabbed a few handfuls of sand and threw it wildly. It's a little wet. Hong Yu did not seem to realize that her absolute domain was still directly riding on Gohan's face. Although there was still a small piece of underwear between them, Gohan's nostrils had already been inhaled by Steel Centipede. When the final battle ended, except for Magic Pen who was sitting safely in his seat, everyone else was lying on the desert with sand all over their bodies. 0791 did not urge them to hurry up and twist their eggs. Instead, he looked at this somewhat cute battle on the battlefield with an expression as if he was watching a show. Lying on the sand and gasping for breath, Gohan suddenly had 2 drops of something wet flowing down from the corners of his eyes. Don't misunderstand, Gohan was not being stung by the smell. Instead, how many years had it been since he had experienced such pure happiness? Ever since he was 6 years old, he had suppressed his emotions for 12 years. He had lived a serious and bitter life for 12 years. At that time, he felt that even a little bit of happiness was a blasphemy to his dead relative. He felt that he did not deserve to have happiness. Only killing Yuan Ko to avenge his parents was his life's goal. However, ever since he became a swordsman, this unsmiling, cold, and unapproachable personality and persona seemed to have gradually drifted away from him. He smiled more and more often, and more sincerely. For example, the way he was fooling around with a bunch of people today was something that he would never have imagined a month ago. Alright, get up and continue twisting your eggs. Don't let Yaoguang wait too long. Gohan patted the sand off his body. Even though his attitude towards life was gradually changing, his life's goal remained the same. Killing all of the Yuan Kos was his life's goal. To correct himself, those filthy Yuan Kos, those Yuan Kos whose hands were stained with the blood of his parents. After a bout of fun, the atmosphere in the scene eased up quite a bit. Everyone began to seriously twist their eggs until the entire process was over. Among everyone, Gohan's luck was still the best. There was only 1 golden and 1 blue egg left in the capsule machine. The other items weren't worth mentioning, but the purple egg had miraculously produced the Tai Yi sword scabbard. It was the exclusive scabbard for the Tai Yi sword, which could increase all of the Tai Yi sword's attributes by 50% and its recovery speed by 600%. Others might not be interested in the Tai Yi sword's scabbard, but there was one person who was definitely interested in the Tai Yi sword's scabbard. This person was none other than General. Her sword mistress was the Tai Yi sword, a spirit sword ranked 9th in the spirit sword record. Chapter 216. How about selling this scabbard to me? I can buy it for 40 million renminbi. Wondrous Pen's eyes lit up at the sight of the scabbard. He offered 40 million renminbi right off the bat. This price was almost equal to the price of a whole set of heavenly sword keepsake. Wondrous Pen was really generous. However, this wasn't surprising. Wondrous Pen was clearly trying to curry favor with Gen by buying this scabbard. For someone like him who had been undercover for more than 10 years, he wouldn't have any connections or resources when he returned to the gang. If he returned, he would probably be placed in a low-level yamen and wouldn't be put in an important position. As such, Ingenious Brush urgently needed to establish a good relationship with Ogino so that it could stay in the Emperor's heart. The Tai Yi sword's exclusive scabbard was the best present for him. This was a rare item that Ogino couldn't even buy with money. However, Gohan didn't intend to let Wondrous Pen have his way. He put the scabbard back into his yuan pocket. "I have other uses for this scabbard, so I won't be selling it." "That's a pity." Wondrous Pen's expression was one of regret. However, he didn't pester Gohan to buy this scabbard. In fact, he had already prepared a gift that Ogen and Ogen couldn't refuse. This scabbard was just the icing on the cake. Apart from Gohan's luck, which was explosively good, which allowed him to obtain a spirit sword grade scabbard, the rest of the members weren't so lucky. Even if it was a purple toy egg, they only obtained something worth less than 50,000 renminbi. It couldn't even compare to a strand of Gohan's scabbard. However, the toy egg was only the beginning. After the egg twisting was over, the most important reward would be revealed. As mentioned before, there was an incomparable super reward for clearing a dungeon. All the items dropped in the dungeon would be listed out, allowing the participating players to pick any one of them. That's right, they could pick any one of the items dropped in the dungeon. Although the toy egg that was produced from the toy egg machine seemed to be able to be produced from any item. However, in reality, the reward of a toy egg produced from a dungeon would be limited to a certain range. For example, instance dungeons below the level of famed swords would definitely not be able to produce a peerless treasure like green sever hair. However, every instance dungeon would have a few unique and precious super treasures with pitifully low drop rate. For example, the Yu King Trampling the Sword instance dungeon would produce a peerless sword maiden like the Yu King Trampling the Sword, but its pitiful drop rate of 0.00001 would cause all players to despair. However, this reward completely ignores the issue of probability. As long as this instance dungeon's drop warehouse contains severed green silk, you can directly take it. Isn't that awesome? That was also the reason why Hong Yu and the others had given up on clearing instance dungeons and fighting Crusade. Instead, they had spent over a month in this hidden instance dungeon. Otherwise, which fool would do something that could end in vain for the sake of the sword faction's honor? Respected players, the instance dungeon's treasure trove is about to open. Are you ready? After distributing all the toy capsule rewards and putting away the toy capsule machine, 0791 clapped his hands and a huge bronze gate appeared out of thin air in the Sahara Desert. The words, "King Arthur's Betrayal," were written on the top of the bronze gate. This bronze gate was the entrance to the instance dungeon's treasure trove. Inside it were all the possible items that could be dropped from the King Arthur's Betrayal dungeon. "Ready, let's go in." Gohan nodded his head and took the lead. He walked to the entrance of the bronze gate. 0791 clapped his hands again, and the bronze gate opened. Gohan led his team into the bronze gate and found that the interior of the gate did not look like a treasure trove. Instead, it looked more like a supermarket. That's right, the interior of the bronze gate looked like a supermarket. The interior was brightly lit and rows of shelves were neatly arranged. They were divided into the Sword Maiden Token section, the Practical Item section, the Sword Maiden Equipment section, the Consumable section, the Crusade section, and so on. There were a total of 12 sections. All the possible items that could be dropped from Sword Maiden Online would be placed in these 12 sections. Gohan first walked around the Sword Maiden section. The Sword Maiden section was the largest section in the supermarket. There were hundreds of shelves and thousands of different Sword Maiden tokens were placed there. Gohan did not even bother looking at the Sword Maiden's keepsake. Who knew how long it would take for him to gather 10 keepsakes? Gohan's main target was the shelf that only had 6 complete Sword Maidens on it. Just like how Gohan was able to pull out a complete Sword Maiden in the King Yuzgo Jian dungeon, it was also possible to pull out a complete Sword Maiden in the instance dungeon. However, the probability of this happening was very small and the number of Sword Maidens that could be pulled out was pitifully small. From this shelf, it could be seen that in the King Arthur's Betrayal dungeon, there were only 6 complete Sword Maidens that could be pulled out. These 6 complete sword ladies were the famed sword ranks Demon Sacrifice Sword, the famed sword ranks Startling Sword, and the famed sword ranks Heaven Regicide Sword. Putting aside the Demon Sacrifice Sword and the Startling Sword, they were both ranked towards the bottom of the famed sword ladies. However, the Heaven Regicide Sword was ranked 3rd in the famed sword record. Ling Yun of the Great Azure Waves team used the Heaven Regicide Sword. The other 3 were the Spirit Sword Grade Gigantic K Sword and the Spirit Sword Grade 6 Dao Sword. The last one was the Immortal Sword Grade Mountain Guard Sword. Among these swords, the Immortal Sword Grade Mountain Guard Sword was naturally the most valuable, followed by the 2 Spirit Swords and finally the 3 famed swords. Logically speaking, the most valuable items in this room were the 3 Sword Maidens above the Spirit Sword grade. However, Gohan had no interest in owning them. This was because once he chose one of the 6 Sword Maidens, it would be bound to him, unable to be dropped or traded. If he failed to synchronize with them, these 6 Sword Maidens would be no different from scrap metal. Thus, it was as if the others did not even come here to look. They did not have the confidence to synchronize with these Sword Maidens in one go. However, Gohan wasn't interested in them. It wasn't because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to synchronize with them, but because these swords weren't suitable for him. They weren't the strongest in their respective levels, so Gohan wasn't interested in synchronizing with them. On the contrary, when he saw the 3 famed sword-grade sword maidens, Gohan's heart was slightly moved. That was especially so when he saw the Sky Killer Sword. For a moment Gohan felt the urge to take it. After all, it was the 3rd-ranked famed sword, much higher than the King of Yu's Gojian sword. Moreover, he could do it in one go, unlike the Heavenly Sword, which required a lot of effort to search. It was also more compatible with his strength. But after thinking about it, Gohan still gave up on the Sky Killer Sword. This was because Gohan's goal had always been the number 1 famed sword, the 3-foot sword. The power of the number 1 famed sword, the 3-foot sword, far surpassed all the sword maidens ranked 2nd and below. Moreover, the 3-foot sword was the one and only human path sword, a famed sword that symbolized the entire human race. There were only 2 human path swords in the world. One was the Emperor Sword, the Xianyuan Sword, which had only appeared in legends, and the other was the 3-foot sword. Compared to the Sky Killer Sword, the 3-foot sword was more suitable for Gohan's abilities. In Gohan's plan, the 3-foot sword was the number 1 choice among the famed swords. There was no other choice more suitable than it. Since these 6 swords were of no use to Gohan, he left the shelf and walked around the few thousand Sword Maidens tokens. Of these tokens, 85% were Ancient Sword and Treasure Sword Maidens tokens, 14% were Famed Sword Maidens tokens, and 1% were Spirit Sword and Immortal Sword Maidens tokens. Although the Famed Sword Maidens tokens only took up 14%, almost 90% of the Famed Sword Maidens tokens were for you. This was because the number of Famed Sword Maidens was too small. Compared to the thousands of treasure swords and ancient swords, there were only a few hundred. Unfortunately, there was no 3-foot sword token among these tokens. Otherwise, Gohan would not have been so conflicted. He could have just taken the 3-foot sword token. However, Gohan also discovered that there was not even a ruler sword token. This was an inconceivable and abnormal thing. Gohan had obtained 3 tokens of the Juzi sword from Luban. Logically speaking, the token of the Juzi sword should also be included in the dungeon's drop range. However, Gohan carefully looked around and found no trace of the token of the Juzi sword. Just when Gohan was a little puzzled, Magic Pen suddenly appeared here. He went straight to the shelf with 6 complete sword maidens and directly picked up the Spirit Sword Level 6 Dao sword. You want this 6 Dao sword? Gohan asked. Yes, I want her. Magic Pen nodded, his eyes staring at the 6 Dao sword. I've wanted her for a long time. I didn't expect to see the complete set here. I'm so lucky. Magic Pen, although I don't think highly of you, I still have to remind you that if you choose the 6 Daos sword, once the synchronization fails, you will have nothing. Military Governor, let me ask you a question. Do you know how long I've been stuck at the spirit sword level? Magic Pen asked with a smile. I don't know. Gohan shook his head. He was not interested in the matter of Magic Pen. I've been stuck for 5 years. Magic Pen sighed. It's been 5 years. In these 5 years, I've experimented with more than 20 Spirit Sword level sword maidens. Almost half of the Spirit Sword level sword maidens have been completed. Then, I entered the sword pavilion full of expectations and came back dejected. The rest of the untested Spirit Sword level sword maidens are too difficult to get. I haven't collected a complete set of Spirit Sword level sword maidens for 5 months. It just so happens that this 6 Daos sword is a Spirit Sword level sword maiden that I haven't collected before. I want to give it a try. What if this sword succeeds? Magic Pen's face was full of bitterness. Gohan suddenly understood why Magic Pen made this choice. Now, any chance that he could break through to the famous sword level was tightly grasped in his hands. Other than that, nothing else mattered. I wish you success. Gohan patted the Magic Pen's shoulder and then went to another area. He still hadn't found what he wanted, or rather, what he wanted. Chapter 217. Gohan walked around the entire supermarket, but he still did not find anything that interested him. Seeing that the others had found the things they wanted, Gohan gradually became anxious. Gohan wandered from the Sword Lady section to the prop section, and then to the consumables section. After walking through 7 or 8 sections, he still did not see anything that could make his eyes light up. He only found a bottle of Sword Element Oral Solution in the consumables section, which was what Gohan needed. However, this bottle of Sword Element Oral Solution was purple in color, and it could only increase the amount of Sword Element by 200 quarks. It would not be of much help to Gohan in reality. What Gohan needed was a prop that could greatly improve his strength in the competition, not the 200 quarks of Sword Element in reality. After walking around for a long time, the only section that Gohan had not been to was the special prop section. Gohan had the idea of going to the consumables section to get his hands on a bottle of Sword Element Oral Solution. After walking around the special prop section, his eyes suddenly lit up. He found an interesting little thing. It was a dusty little thing that was placed at the bottom of the shelf. It looked inconspicuous. Gohan picked it up and looked at its name. Instantly, his face was full of smiles. He did not expect this thing to be dropped. His reward was it. Gohan was the last to leave the treasure vault. The others had already picked out their items, but Gohan did not know what they had chosen. Only Steel Centipede was happily showing off to the others with a gorgeous washbasin. Gohan recognized this washbasin because he also had one. It was the cornucopia that he had obtained from the Jinyuan Garrison Crusade mission. It was a magical prop that could turn one treasure into 2. After leaving the treasure vault, Gohan found that everyone was looking at him a little strangely. There seemed to be some reluctance in their eyes. This was normal. When the treasure vault was officially closed, it meant that the temporary team was officially disbanded. Gohan was also about to leave the Yaoguang sword faction and return to his days of being alone. Military Governor, let's meet again. The Yu siblings smiled at Gohan. Gohan nodded. Of course, we will meet again if there is a chance. Military Governor, although I still don't like you, I, Gangmong, admire you. If you have any problems in the future, look for me, Gangmong. As long as I, Gangmong, can do it, I won't refuse. I'll treat you as my friend. Steel Centipede patted his chest. Just as Steel Centipede had said, his relationship with Gohan was definitely the worst in the team, but he still admired Gohan. He admired Gohan's intelligence and ability. No matter how bad their relationship was, this kind of admiration would come from the bottom of his heart and could not be stopped. I have nothing else to say. I'm leaving. I hope we won't be opponents in the future. Magic Pen waved his hand and left the Instance Dungeon's settlement center. He had already died in the Instance Dungeon. If he hadn't wanted to receive the reward with his teammates, he would have probably been kicked out of the game for 3 days like Gohan. This time, he immediately left the Instance Dungeon's settlement center. The next time he went online would be 3 days later. After Magic Pen said his goodbyes, Hong Yu was the only one who hadn't spoken to Gohan. In the last Instance Dungeon, it could be seen that Hong Yu had secretly become Gohan's assistant. She helped Gohan complete many of the things that he had privately instructed her to do. In the team, the one who had the best relationship with Gohan was undoubtedly Hong Yu. I've decided. Hong Yu suddenly walked toward Gohan with graceful steps. She wrapped her arms around Gohan's neck, raised her head, and stared into Gohan's eyes. I want to pursue you. I want you to become my, Hong Yu's man. This sudden confession was too sudden. Not only did Gohan not react, but even Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings, who were watching from the side, were also stunned. Hong Yu, didn't you want to pursue our Yaoguang sect leader and marry him? Why did you change your mind so quickly? Aren't you afraid that sect leader Yaoguang will be sad if he finds out? Steel Centipede shouted loudly. Enough. Yaoguang has rejected me, Hong Yu, over 100 times. I, Hong Yu, don't like him anymore. This military governor is several times better than Yaoguang. Hong Yu doesn't want that stinky Yaoguang anymore. Hong Yu stuck out her tongue at Steel Centipede. She wanted to say something to Gohan, but unexpectedly, Gohan leaped out of Hong Yu's embrace. Hong Yu, I don't have any plans to be with anyone for now. You've found the wrong person. Just give up. After saying that, Gohan's figure gradually faded away. Finally, he disappeared from the Instance Dungeon's settlement center. After leaving the Instance Dungeon's settlement center, Gohan directly returned to his sword catacomb. He told King Yu and Heavenly Reliance that he would be offline for a long time. He estimated that he would not be able to come back online for 4 to 5 days. Heavenly Reliance appeared to be very indifferent. However, she moved closer to Gohan to curry favor. Hey, Husky, you can leave, but you have to leave something behind. What is it? Gohan was momentarily confused. What does Heavenly Reliance want me to leave behind? Is it a hug of love? Of course not. Heavenly Reliance waved her palm and made a gesture of taking out money. Of course it's money. You'd better leave at least 1 to 200,000. Otherwise, this heroine won't even have enough money to drink. This heroine had discovered that after Gohan left, she had no money to buy alcohol. Thus, she urged Gohan to leave behind some pocket money. Is this enough? Gohan took out 50,000 renminbi and handed it to Heavenly Reliance. Thanks, Husky. I'll give you one. Heavenly Reliance quickly kissed Gohan's face. Then, she took the money and walked out happily. This action of hers was similar to that of a goddaughter begging her godfather for money. It was indeed similar. After satisfying Heavenly Reliance's needs, it was time for King Yu's. However, King Yu seemed to be much easier to deal with than Heavenly Reliance. She simply waved her hand and impatiently indicated that she only wanted to watch TV shows online. Forget about 4 to 5 days, Gohan could even stay offline for 4 to 5 months without any problems. Alright then, see you next week. Gohan waved at King Yu. His figure gradually became indifferent. This time, he disappeared from the game world. Ugh. Stinky military governor, rotten person, ugh. King Yu suddenly pounced on the keyboard. Her face kept scrolling on the keyboard. Deep marks accompanied by tears soaked her cheeks and skin. Gohan. You're finally awake. You've been inside for so long this time. You didn't even come out to play with Chinpin. Chinpin doesn't like you anymore. As soon as Gohan opened his eyes, he saw Chinpin riding on him. Chinpin was wearing the panda suit he bought last time. However, because Chinpin's head was too small, The two black and white ears didn't appear on either side of Qingpin's ears like the designer of the panda suit had imagined. Instead, they were planted on Qingpin's head. They looked like a pair of cute horns. "This cute thing. You're so adorable that it's killing me." Gohan's heart was fiercely touched by Qingpin's cuteness. He hugged Qingpin's little butt and stood up from the bed. "Qingpin, what time is it now?" It had been more than 30 hours since Gohan logged out of the game. In these 30 hours, Gohan had been researching and planning the final strategy to clear the dungeon, so he hadn't logged out of the game. When he woke up, he couldn't tell the time in reality. How would I know about this kind of thing? Hey, Sister Maiden, what time is it today?" His eyebrows furrowed, and he pushed the responsibility of this task to his personal maid, Maiden. "It's 16:56 in the afternoon now. Lady Qingpin, there are still 34 minutes before you start eating. Please don't worry, your dompa pork is already simmering on the stove." When Maiden thought that Qingpin was asking about the time because he was concerned about when the meal would start. After spending a few days with Qingpin, when Maiden had fully understood Qingpin's temperament. This master of hers was probably only interested in pork, especially natural pork. Everything else was not within her scope of concern. Oh no, her master was also something she was seriously concerned about. Every time the Calabash brothers finished broadcasting, Qingpin would run over to Gohan, who was immersed in the game. He would pinch here and there. Occasionally, he would also like to put his own feet into his master's mouth. Gohan thought it was some peerless delicacy, so he licked and ate it happily. However, to be honest, Qingpin's little feet did not have any stench when eaten. On the contrary, it had a strange feeling like sandalwood. Today is the 7th of August in the year 3001, right? Is it going to be night again? Is tomorrow the 8th of August again? When Gohan heard Meiden's report, he silently calculated in his heart. He still remembered that after the Deep Sword Scar class ended, his homeroom teacher, Luo Fan, said that the next practical training class was about to start. Now that he thought about it, it would start the day after tomorrow. There was only one free day left for the solid cold. However, Gohan did not have much time. After dinner today, he still had to spend the whole night organizing and writing a guide for King Arthur's Betrayal. At this time, there were probably hundreds of people on the forum eagerly waiting for his guide to be published so that they could rush into the dungeon and start the guide. After tonight, Gohan still had to log into the game the next day. He had some time to communicate with Yaoguang, and he also had to go to the Stormy Waves sword sect to collect his wager. The three demons subduing sword formation. This was the biggest reason that Gohan won the 8 cities sword duel. Finally, there was one more thing that Gohan had to do before he left the city. This was more important than anything else. It was something that Gohan had never forgotten. Chapter 218. While Gohan and Qingpin were happily eating the pork dishes, the forum was in a frenzy. All sorts of posts about the first clear of the instance dungeon kept popping up. There was one post that was the most popular. The post had a big and eye-catching title: The Beginning of the Decline of a Prosperous Dynasty, The Throne of Kanglin Billows. The post first used an attitude of someone who had seen through the changes of the world. It talked about the metaphysical principle of 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West. It pointed out that the upward curve of the Kanglin Billows had ended. After the peak, the Kanglin Billows had entered a downward curve. The main point of the post was that the Kanglin Billows had been defeated by a new player who had teamed up with a sword sect that was not even in the top 10. They had also lost a large amount of sword sect resources and the 3 demon suppression sword formation left by the founder, Gu Guan. This huge failure was a sign that the Kanglin Billows' strength was rapidly declining. All sorts of bureaucracy prevailed, and all sorts of useless nepotism occupied the top positions of the Kanglin Billows. The Kanglin Billows was like an old man with an incurable chronic disease. It was only a matter of time before it was destroyed. The post praised Gohan and the Yaoguang sword sect. It said that the military governor was definitely the most outstanding and dazzling player in the past 30 years. He was much more dazzling than Ogio and Yaoguang from 10 years ago. Whether it was his intelligence or strength, he had crushed the newbies of the same generation. In the future, there would definitely be a place for the military governor at the peak of the gaming world. The post was not exaggerating. It listed the super achievements that the military governor had so far. For example, he was the first SSS rank player to clear the Yuan Gojian Sword Instance Dungeon in 200 years. He found the Wu Dang Peak Instance Dungeon Easter egg that no one had found in 200 years. He triggered an Emperor Sword quest at the youngest age. He led the team to snatch the first clear from the Kanglan Billows at the youngest age. The military governor's achievements were all real. Gohan had only been in the game for a month, and he had entered the game at the minimum age of 18. He wasn't a veteran who had been fighting outside for more than a decade and entered the game at the age of 30. Just look at the achievements of Yaoguang, who was known as the leader of the new generation, and Ogen, who had been in the game for a month. Their combined achievements weren't even 1/4 as dazzling as the military governor. The post even compared the military governor to Gu Jinjiendi, who had just entered the game. Even though the author of the post didn't think that the military governor's final achievement would be on par with Gu Jinjiendi, he believed that it was possible for him to be second only to Gu Jinjiendi. He also guaranteed that the military governor would rule the game for 1 or 2 generations and become the undisputed king of the game. The author used all his strength to praise Gohan from the beginning to the end. Those who didn't know would think that the author was a fake army that the military governor had spent a lot of money to hire. Unbeknownst to them, when Gohan saw the post, he was also confused. Did this person want to curse him to death? Gohan thought that the people who replied to this post were all scolding the OP for being an idiot and scolding the OP for being a water army that he had hired. In the end, when he opened the post to take a look, there was actually a large amount of praise and praise. They all said that the OP had written well and that the Admiral was indeed the future leader. There were even people who tipped the OP a few hundred RMB, praising the OP for speaking their minds. Gohan flipped through more than 10 pages of posts and found that 90% of them agreed with the OP and flattered him. Occasionally, there were 1 or 2 sensible people who felt that the military governor needed more time to observe before making a conclusion. However, they were attacked by the crazy fans of the military governor. In the end, they didn't even dare to say anything bad about him. There's something wrong here. Gohan closed the thread, and the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. The author of this thread and the replicant were undoubtedly fake reviewers. However, they weren't the fake army hired by Gohan's supporters. Instead, they were the fake army hired by the enemies who didn't like Gohan. Their purpose was very simple. They wanted to promote Gohan on the internet as high as possible. Everyone might ask, aren't they crazy? Since they were Gohan's enemies, why did they promote him? Shouldn't they slander Gohan in all kinds of ways? Of course, Gohan's enemies weren't crazy. On the contrary, they had high IQs. This was because they knew that if Gohan didn't take the initiative to make a mistake and didn't expose any explosive scandal or failure, it was impossible to discredit Gohan with just their words. Then, in turn, they would promote Gohan. Gohan's current achievements seemed very dazzling, but in fact, there weren't many achievements that could become the cornerstone of Gohan. Now that Gohan was being praised so highly by them, it was like a bottomless platform or a floating cloud in the sky. And if Gohan were to be blinded by these praises and really thought that he was such a powerful person, then due to his arrogance and carelessness, failure was inevitable. Just like a certain reverse Q player before the apocalypse who really believed in the praises of the world's #1 mid-laner on the internet. As a result, it would be difficult for him to climb back up after falling for the rest of his life. Gohan was also in the same situation. As long as Gohan made a mistake, then the entire platform would collapse. In the past, Gohan's enemies praised Gohan as highly as Gohan fell. This could be said to be a vicious scheme. Gohan quickly understood all kinds of nonsense, but Gohan didn't intend to deal with these open and covert attacks. In Gohan's opinion, there was no need to do so. Let them praise him as high as they wanted. Anyway, he wouldn't fall for the rest of his life. In addition to this malicious post praising Gohan, there were even more posts begging the military governor to quickly release the strategy guide for King Arthur's betrayal. These gamers kept posting posts like this. Has the military governor's strategy guide been released yet? When will the military governor's strategy guide be released? Military governor begs you to release the strategy guide as soon as possible. My sword lady is dying for it. Military governor, if you release the strategy guide before 7 p.m., I will tip you 1,888 renminbi. Do you believe me? Yes, these were probably the voices urging Gohan to release the strategy guide as soon as possible. These kinds of posts occupied more than half of the main page of the forum. This was a very impressive achievement. Gohan didn't want to keep these gamers in suspense. He was happy to release the strategy guide now, but this wasn't practical. This was because he hadn't written a single word yet. From 6 in the afternoon to 12 in the evening, Gohan finally finished writing the entire guide. It took him a total of 6 hours to do so. The reason it took him so long was not because Gohan was very conscientious and wrote a lot of words. In fact, the total number of words was only about 4,000. In the hands of a web novelist, it would only take 2 hours to finish. The reason why it took 6 hours was because Gohan had been seriously writing this guide. He had listed out many details that could affect the rating, as well as things that needed to be taken note of. When chatting with NPCs, he had listed out all the taboo topics that should not be discussed, and so on. For example, after killing the coyote, he had to remember to clean up the carcass. When talking to Liu Ban, he had to maintain respect for him. When interacting with Artoria, he had to show her enough respect. Finally, Gohan was very considerate. He listed out all the questions he had answered during the college entrance examination, as well as the questions that Gangshan and the others had answered. He even included the standard answers. Of course, this was just a drop in the bucket for the dungeon's question bank. It was only 1%. When the entire strategy guide was finished, Gohan carefully revised it again. He corrected some typos and sentence problems. He named it Military Governor's Post, Guide to the First Clear of King Arthur's Betrayal Instance Dungeon. He set the subscription amount to 5 yuan. After splitting the revenue with the official account of Yaoguang Sword Sect, he posted the strategy guide. The administrator behind the forum was probably keeping a close eye on Gohan's actions. When he used his alternate account, 12580, to confirm and post the guide, this post was set to be the pinnacle of the forum by the administrator and appeared at the top of the forum. Dear Swordsman Gohan, someone has read your sub-account, Military Governor 12,580's post on the forum. Military Governor's Post, Guide to the First Clear of King Arthur's Betrayal Instance Dungeon. After paying 5 yuan and deducting 20% of the personal income tax, your game account has been automatically credited with 2 yuan. In an instant, Gohan's personal terminal began to crazily accept such subscription messages. Fortunately, Gohan had taken precautions and set up the Do Not Disturb mode. Thus, the series of prompts did not cause his brain to explode. 10 minutes after the post was posted, the number of views of the entire post had exceeded 200,000. Just the subscription fees alone amounted to 500,000 renminbi being transferred into Gohan's account. This didn't include the tipping fees. 100, 588, 1888, 5888, 10,000, etc. All sorts of tipping fees were thrown towards this guide post. In the tipping statistics section of the post, Guhan could see that the person who had tipped the most was an unknown nouveau riche called, Zay Zay is my wife. He had actually tipped this guidepost 100,000 renminbi in one go. This caused Guhan to sigh. The nouveau riches of this world are really willful. By the time Guhan woke up the next morning, the strategy guide had earned Guhan 15 million in subscriptions and 51 million in rewards. Based on Guhan's calculations, the strategy guide should have earned 30 million in subscriptions and 45.02 million in rewards. That would mean a total of 6 million people had read Guhan's strategy guide. The number of readers was still rising. There were a total of 120 million people in the 8 base cities on Earth. It was estimated that there would be a total of 50 million readers in the end. After all, among the 120 million people, about 100 million were poor people who didn't have jobs and could only rely on games to pass their empty spiritual lives. Chapter 219. King Yu, I've decided. From today onwards, I'll give up on Qing Pin, give up on Heavenly Sword, give up on all the sword ladies in the future. I'll stay in the game for the rest of my life and be with you. Guhan held up King Yu's face and said gently, Annoying, when did I give up on the other sword ladies? When did I say I'll be with you forever? Annoying, annoying, annoying. King Yu lowered his head and looked extremely shy. You said that you'll be with me in the game for the rest of your life. You're not allowed to go back on your word. I won't go back on my word. I, Guhan, have cheated the heavens and the earth, I've cheated the people of the world. I won't cheat you, King Yu. Guhan raised his hand and swore to the heavens. Logically speaking, you, Guhan, have already said that you'll cheat the heavens and the earth and the world, so what's the use of swearing? Isn't swearing lying to the heavens? However, King Yu didn't seem to notice Guhan's laughable word game. He stood up in surprise and pounced into Guhan's embrace. Stinky, despicable person, I, King Yu, will crush you to death. Ouch, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. King Yu suddenly opened his eyes and saw that he had fallen to the ground. There was a sharp table leg beside his head. It seemed like King Yu had knocked into this table leg. Last night, King Yu had been sitting in front of the computer watching TV. He didn't know when, but he fell asleep on the computer table. It seemed like he was too agitated in his sleep, causing him to fall off the chair and knock into the table leg. Feeling the pain on his forehead and thinking about what happened in his dream, a sense of grievance surged up his heart. But King Yu stood up and slammed the computer table. After feeling the vibration, the computer monitor immediately lit up and started to play the TV series that King Yu hadn't finished watching. At this moment, the TV series had entered its climax. The male and female lead who had reunited after a long time threw away everything in their hands and pounced into each other's embrace, enjoying the sweetness of love. This was a heartwarming scene, but in King Yu's eyes, it seemed to be a deep mockery. How dare you? Even you dare to look down on this king? King Yu's eyes turned red. Trash military governor, stinky military governor, trash military governor, despicable military governor, if you have the ability, don't come back to play games. If you have the ability, don't come back to see me. If you have the ability, don't use me. No, don't play me. Anyway, don't come back. King Yu's sword suddenly and slashed at the computer table in front of her. How could this pitiful computer desk and computer withstand King Yu's sword? It was instantly cut in half. The computer screen that was originally playing the TV series was also completely extinguished. Ziwei, I love you. I swear I'll never leave you again. You don't know how painful it is for me to love you. I can't watch the stars and the moon with you. I can't talk about life philosophy with you from poems and songs. I'm really in pain. I'm in so much pain. I don't ever want to leave you again. Yongqi, I love you too. I swear that I will never leave you again. I don't know how painful it is for me to love you too. I can't watch the stars and the moon with you, and I can't talk about the philosophy of life with you. I'm really in pain, in pain, in pain. I don't ever want to leave you again. Ziwei. Yo Chi. Although the monitor was broken, the mainframe was still intact and the speaker was still there. The two funny protagonists were still expressing their heartfelt feelings to each other. Then, there was no then. The mainframe was also killed by the angry King Yu. So annoying. 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 Trash. Even you dare to bully this king? Even you dare to bully this king? This king will tear your body apart by 5 horses, 10 horses, 100 horses, 1,000 horses, 10,000 horses, 100 million horses, all of you will be torn apart. Torn apart. This pitiful computer desk became King Yu's final punching bag. After being brutally killed by King Yu's inhumane swords, it finally became a pile of unknown electronic components. How inhumane. King Yu, what are you doing? Did this computer offend you? Suddenly, Gohan asked curiously from behind King Yu. None of your business. King Yu retorted without turning his head. He continued to hack at the computer a few more times before suddenly coming to his senses. He turned in horror and saw Gohan's strange face. You, why are you here? King Yu was about to become incoherent. She just couldn't understand why Gohan would appear here and just happened to see her crazy state. Didn't you say that you might not be online for 4 to 5 days? Is that weird? Gohan walked to King Yu's side. You said it yourself. I said it might be 4 to 5 days, then I might also be online. Just now in reality, Mingyu came to find me and said that Yao Guang wanted to talk to me about something, so I went online. So it was Mingyu who looked for you back then, that's why you came online. When King Yu heard this, his anger flared up again. If another woman called and Gu Han came online, then what did he count as? Well, women hated this. They would always neglect some important things. For example, this time, it was actually Yao Guang who came to find Gohan. Back then, Mingyu was just a mouthpiece. Why is your face so red? Gohan stretched out a hand and touched King Yu's face. As expected, it was very hot like a volcano. You have a cold and a fever? Gohan rubbed the hand that touched King Yu's face on her forehead. She compared the temperature of the two and came to a conclusion. King Yu, you really have a fever. Get lost. King Yu was about to go crazy. Like a hungry tiger, she pounced on Gohan and pressed Gohan onto the bed. Her pink fists pounded on Gohan's head, body, and legs. Luckily, she maintained her rationality. She didn't take out the King Yu sword and poke a few holes on Gohan's body. Alright, stop messing around. Gohan turned around and pressed King Yu onto the bed. King Yu twisted and wanted to resist, but Gohan's legs clamped down and King Yu's entire body went limp. At this moment, the two people's posture could be said to be very ambiguous. Gu Han's lower body was kneeling, and her knees were tightly clamped on both sides of Yu Wang's thighs. Yu Wang's pair of slender legs were like a pair of ivory jade chopsticks connected together. After Gohan clamped King Yu's thighs, he sat on her snow-white thighs. The two sensitive things under his crotch happened to collide face to face. At the same time, Gohan bent down and gradually pressed his face against King Yu's face. Forehead touched forehead, nose touched nose, lips touched lip. You, what do you want? Let go of this king. King Yu's words were soft and had no confidence at all. There was no decisiveness or threat in his tone. This pitiful little sheep had already fallen. You have a fever, King Yu, you need to cool down. Gu Han's face descended once more, allowing his entire face to touch King Yu's face completely. Gu Han's breath directly blew onto King Yu's face, making his face even more unbearably hot. And King Yu couldn't help but snort. It was like a beautiful young woman who had been widowed for more than 10 years and moaned like rain for the first time. Hurry up and scram. You don't want to see me. Hurry up and scram. Alright, then I'll scram. King Yu only said this insincerely, but Gohan seemed to take it seriously. He climbed up from King Yu's body like a customer who had paid and left. I'm leaving. Gohan even tidied up his collar and trousers. Brother, you didn't take off your clothes, why are you tidying up this thing? Scram. King Yu buried his head in the blanket. His voice was a little muffled. It sounded like he was crying, but after listening carefully, it didn't seem like it. King Yu, I know your intentions. Gohan wasn't an EQ idiot. He was like the main character in the Japanese anime before the apocalypse. The female lead had clearly shown it, but they couldn't seem to see that the female lead liked him. Gohan vaguely understood that King Yu's heart was on him. However, this is a game world. My home doesn't belong here. Sooner or later, I will completely leave the game and won't log into this world. I will find my life goal and dream in the real world outside. I belong to reality. The game is only a necessary way for me to realize my dream. I hope you can understand. Gohan's words were indifferent and very calm, but in King Yu's heart, it was like being cut by a knife. It made King Yu feel like he was in a sea of fire. So, do you want this king to forget you forever? King Yu suddenly sat up from the bed. The 2 tear stains on her cheeks were very obvious. She was really crying. That's good. Go and buy a dew of cherishing fate. That way we can completely sever our ties. This king will continue to fall into endless slumber and won't have to live like this anymore. I didn't mean that. Gohan shook his head. I won't give up on you. Since you've become my sword mother, I will always be responsible for you. Responsible? How will you be responsible? A trace of anticipation flashed across King Yu's eyes, but there was also a trace of confusion. Aren't you going to gradually give up on the game? I will synchronize with your main body in the real world. That way, your memories will return to the real world along with your main body. You will still be able to accompany me for the rest of my life. Okay. King Yu nodded. She knew that Gohan was a man who would do what he said. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.